You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Middle Age Movie Reviews Podcast. Three guys are going to be like little Fonzies. We're all going to be cool while we tell you about 1,001 movies you should watch before you die. My name is Tim, and my podcasting partners are...
Middle Age Matt.
Joey.
And tonight we have another guest from the Fat Dude Digs Flicks Network. It's...
Andy.
Hey, Andy, thanks for joining us. Can you tell our listeners a little about your podcast and what got you into reviewing movies?
Yeah, I've been, I feel like a movie fan since birth, pretty much. And I've just loved watching movies for the longest time. And I used to like just talking to myself on a podcast form about whatever movies I was into. And that turned out to not be very fun. So I decided I would start having guests on the show. Having guests on the show turned into having co-hosts. So now across 3 different podcasts, I get to talk about movies and talk about the people who love movies. And I just super enjoy it. So I do an interview show called Let's Talk About, a journey into the Criterion collection called The Criterion Break, and then all the other stuff in between with a couple of friends. We do a podcast called The Balcony.
That's awesome. And like I said, before the show, I've been listening to Andy's stuff, and it's pretty darn good.
Thank you so much.
Well, all right, Joey, you want to tell us what we rented from the Red Box tonight?
We are going to be reviewing Pulp Fiction, the 1994 independent crime film written by and directed by everyone's favorite foot fetishist, Quentin Tarantino.
Wow, you actually said Pulp Fiction and not like Pulp Friction or Plump
Fiction. Friction was what I was going to go with, but I'm not feeling well.
Okay.
I was very thrown off by that.
Yeah, it's a little off, but all right.
But I did start off with, calling him out on the feet thing, which starts in this movie. I don't remember any feet-related things in Reservoir Dogs.
Gotcha. Well, Andrew, our typical question we start off with is, when was the first time you seen this film? So we're going to hand it off to you first, since you're our wonderful guest tonight. When was the first time you saw Pulp Fiction?
So I probably saw this, I want to say it's 1995, probably the early months of 1995 or the late months of 1994. I was super into Forrest Gump, a 13-year-old kid who just was loving movies and really getting into the Oscars that year. So I tried to watch everything that was nominated. And there was this movie that was generating a lot of heat and publicity that I was just like, oh, well, what is this? What is this? I got to find it. None of the theaters nearby where I live were playing it. Plus, I was 13 years old. I didn't think it would be the right movie to go see with my parents, and that was a good call on my part. I would come to find out once we would get to the GIMP scene. But so we rented it from Blockbuster Video way back in the day. We were spending one night as a family watching this movie, and I think they realized right away that was a bad choice, and that we would get back to it later. So they finished.
Daddy, what's he doing to that man?
What's happening? Why is Marcellus Wallace being treated like a bitch? So then we went, stopped watching it that night. And then the next night, I kind of was like, well, I want to finish this movie. So I finished it on my own. And so either the early or late part of 1994, beginning of 95. And it's been something that I've really, really enjoyed ever since.
Nice. I could see your parents wanting to watch it with you because there was that wonderful Bible verse in the movie. I mean, it was definitely a movie about Bible verses, Yeah.
Very good Christian thinking film.
Exactly.
Lots of inspiration there.
How about you, Joey? When was the first time you heard those famous words of Ezekiel 25:17?
Son, when a gangster and off-duty rent-a-cop love each other very much, they want to express that love physically. I was in high school. I believe I was about around 15 years old, and my sister had rented it, so I saw it on VHS. This is definitely a movie where you notice more things, like the better quality you watch it in, such as bullet holes already being in the wall, stuff like that. People who supposedly had their head blown off, heads not blown off. Little details, titles of books aren't so blurry. But at the time, like, I was enthralled. I couldn't, I had to go to school the next day, and I said, fuck it. My parents are sleeping. I'm just going to keep watching this until it's over. I think I was up till 1 a.m. finishing it. There's 2 movies that I went to school really tired the next day. It was Pulp Fiction, and the other one was Billy Madison. And I have no regrets. Right.
Well, how about you, Tim? When was the first time you got to see this now classic 30-year-old film?
First off, I have to say, I'm just thinking about what Andy's saying. Like, if he had gone with his parents, I'm just thinking after watching that scene with the gimp, can you imagine that car ride home? Everybody nobody's saying anything. The elephant's in the room. Everybody's trying to ignore it. His mom's hitting his dad on the leg. Mom's hitting dad on the leg. Like, why'd you let him go to this?
People have been explaining male rape to each other since Deliverance in 1972.
Well, this is true, but Deliverance was, I don't think you actually got to watch the thrusting action, with, next to a guy dressed in a leather suit, that was brought out of a box. But anyway, so the first time, that was a nice touch.
Gimp was new. People like, Gimp?
Yeah.
Was that man handicapped?
Yeah. Quentin's just sitting around the table going like, look, we all have seen Deliverance. How can we top this? And some guy's like, I don't know, leather guy in a suit out of a box. Like, great, let's go with that.
I love it.
Yeah, dude, we're totally doing that. Just make sure we can see his feet. But I think the first time I seen this film, I was in college, dating my wife. And I remember taking her to it, and she was like, this is a horrible movie. I don't ever want to see this again. And my, then girlfriend, now wife, watched it with me again, getting ready for this. And she looked at me, he's like, didn't we watch this? And I didn't like this the last time. I'm like, you may not have liked that. And then we got to that gimp scene, and she's like, are they going to anal rape each other? And I'm like, I don't remember, trying to look all innocent. She's like, you damn well knew this was coming. So yeah, she was not happy, to say the least. I made her watch this movie twice. But so yeah, the first time I seen it, college with my girlfriend, now wife, and it could be I may have to introduce her as this was my first wife, and when I get the second one after making her watch this twice.
Is it the same leather gimp suit from The People Under the Stairs, or because that was the first? I didn't know it was a gimp suit. I knew it was something sadomasochistic and weird in The People Under the Stairs, but in this movie, the man's tied up and doesn't speak whole words.
I don't know. I had to go back and watch People Under the Stairs again to let you know.
It's a good one.
So even better, did they bring it out? And they're like, here, put this suit on. I was like, why does it smell sweaty? Like, never mind, just put it on and get in the box. All right, man.
Another actor may have worn this. It does. We can just kind of wipe it down. You can't wash it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's pleather, sir, pleather. You know what happens with pleather.
You got to use the powder.
Like you guys, the first time I seen this movie, well, like Andy and Joe, the first time I seen this movie was actually I rented it. It came out when I was 15. I didn't quite have my driver's license yet, but oddly enough, I didn't get to go to the video store and rent it myself. I want to say my dad did, but the only reason why he rented it was because he had heard the soundtrack from a buddy of his. And so he ended up buying the soundtrack, and that's how I was first introduced to Pulp Fiction, was just from the music, the soundtrack alone. And there were so many lines that were actually included in the soundtrack that I knew before I even seen it in context with the film. So, so after going to that Lackluster video and renting the movie and watching it, and again, similar situation, the elephant in the room. We kind of didn't talk about it, and just kind of moved on from there.
Yeah, you get to hear it before you see it. You're like, I think that they're, and then he is.
Yeah.
And you don't know, who's really on him. You think it might be Zed.
So, but thankfully, back then VHS was a little grainy, so there was kind of extra blurry.
Yeah,
So,
you just see the thrust motions and stuff. But how about that soundtrack? Right?
The soundtrack.
There's no score. There's no score to this movie. It's just music that he chose for the film. There is no score. Just the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And years later, when I picked up the dual disc DVD, and I listened or I watched all the special features and the behind the scenes stuff, and I really got engrossed to this movie. I really enjoyed this movie just from a filmmaking standpoint and a storytelling standpoint. And in an interview, Quentin had said that he picked a bunch of songs that he liked, and he would sit down and he'd just listen to the songs, and as he's writing the scenes, he just listened to the song over and over again until it kind of helped flow and help write out his storyline. And so that's, like I said, that was a great way for me to really enjoy the movie, was just to hear the soundtrack first. And ever since then, I've been sucked into the whole Pulp Fiction film and anything that Quentin Tarantino has written and directed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think with that, we can go ahead and segue into the synopsis for Pulp Fiction. So if you haven't seen this film in the last 30 years, you've been living under a rock somewhere in, say, North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Boo, North Dakota.
You've been living a cinema sodomy, sin-free life, and now it's time to change that.
Then here is the brief synopsis, Reader's Digest version for Pulp Fiction. All right. Vincent Vega and Jules.
No, hang on, Joey. Hang on, Matt. I think tonight you should read the synopsis as Samuel Jackson doing an angry Jules. Go!
Say what again? I dare you. Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield are hitmen with a penchant for philosophical discussions whose lives are interwoven with their mob boss Marcellus Wallace and his wife Mia, and the struggling boxer Butch Coolidge. In a non-linear story, we learn what happens in the usual 3 days of their lives living and working in the Los Angeles criminal underworld.
Very nice. Very nice.
I don't have the same cadence as Sam Jackson, but that's about as close as I can get.
It's all right. It's all right. You did well.
Opening sequence to Pulp Fiction. And I have to say, since this movie is non-linear, it was just interesting how the movie just kind of opens up on this diner scene. And right off the bat, one thing that I've noticed about any Quentin Tarantino movie is he's got dialogue, just regular, everyday conversation down pat. I mean, you watch some movies and you can tell the dialogue is a little forced. It doesn't feel like it flows right. But when Quentin has his lines and everything, it seems like a more natural conversation, like we tend to have every day, especially in a diner scene. And so we start off and we meet Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, and it turns out that they're just enjoying a nice breakfast. They got some coffee. They're chit chatting. They're talking about robbing liquor stores. I didn't really when I first watched it, I didn't realize right off the bat, what was going on. And then you find out that these are just two average, everyday thugs, criminals. And seeing Tim Roth as a bad guy, it kind of threw me back to the first time I saw him in like Braveheart, where he truly played a real dirtbag. And I gotta say, he's got great delivery as a bad guy. So what did you guys first think of this opening sequence? And I'm gonna pass it on to Andy, our guest. What were your initial thoughts in this first opening sequence?
I feel like you just kind of get thrown into this world right away and don't really know, who these characters are, what their connection is to the rest of the story. It's just such a at the beginning, it feels like this very isolated scene that just is kind of like, oh, okay, so this is just another day in LA with some criminals. But I think that the dialogue is just really quippy. Like it has just the right kind of like patter to it and the right kind of exchange to it, which gets you hooked in right from the beginning. And then there's the just watching like the little things with their eyes. I know the part where he says "garçon, coffee," and then the waitress comes to the table. Garçon means boy. Amanda Plummer looks at the waitress and has this kind of like really. It's almost like this joyful kind of look that she corrected Tim Roth. I don't know. It's just these little things here and there that make it so much fun. But I think it's one heck of a way to kick off the movie because once they go through with their plan, then it's boom. Here comes that opening song, and it's off to the races from there. So yeah, I think this is one hell of a way to start a movie.
Yeah. And I thought it was kind of neat how Amanda Plummer, just the way she portrays the character, there's just a little bit of that crazy, that like not quite connected, definitely maybe escaped from some institution. Because I mean, she has this way of delivering her lines that makes you think that she's gonna like either A, kiss him or slit his throat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's a weird like. And I think it's probably because she comes off as a bit crazy. There's a weird kind of like she almost seems very childlike too in her like just kind of the way that she's dealing with all of this. How it's like this her sense of excitement is like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I love this. And when we get to see her later on too, how she reacts to everything that's happening is like. She just basically got hit by a truck and is now just like, what do we do? And she feels very much like just a little kid who's like looking for their parents and looking for guidance on what to do next. Right. But yeah, I think she's kind of like the unsung hero of this scene.
I think right from the get-go, like beginning with their conversation where they're discussing it, they're spitballing ideas. This is a movie where the conversations move forward the plot. Mm-hmm. And there are things that happen. They plan to do this, but this happens. You still, you don't have and you have buts, which is what you want in a good story. I read that from Trey Parker, the South Park guys. He says, you want a story with buts, not and. And that does happen, but there's a lot of things where like you're hearing the characters make decisions audibly.
Right. Yeah, especially when after the conversation about holding up the diner itself, he's like, let's just do it now. And it's like, you can see that glint of excitement in Amanda Plummer's eyes. And, these two characters kind of parallel two characters in another Quentin Tarantino written movie, the Natural Born Killers. They seem very much like they could have been Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis. She's got the similar kind of almost innocence at the beginning of Natural Born Killers, and then as things progress, she gets more and more, crazier.
I feel like it's kind of along the same line. He said he listened to a bunch of songs and he kind of wrote to them. He kind of wrote the beginning of this like a song. It's got a strong intro to it, and as soon as they jump up and they are like, "Oh, you motherfuckers, get on the ground!" Blah blah blah. It's the hook. It's the hooky riff at the chorus, and it's grabbing you and it pulls you into this movie. And I think maybe he either consciously or subconsciously did that, but that's exactly what this does. It starts the movie off, or the movie off with a real strong beginning, like a conversation that kind of draws you in, like, well, what's this all about? And all of a sudden it just, they turn it up to 11, they're jumping up, they got that hooky riff going on, the guitar is screaming, and the song's just moving forward at a breakneck pace at that point. So I thought it was really brilliant starting the movie off like this.
Funny that you mentioned pace. Like, now, do you feel that intro's aged well in that he played almost 2 entire songs and showed the credits first?
I didn't get bored with it.
No.
I think because you're so.
I mean, it's not the first time you're seeing it, though.
Right, this is true, but I'll be honest with you. I've only watched this movie 3 times in my life. The first time I seen it probably once, and then today. So it's almost like I watched it again for the first time. I remembered very little of it other than the briefcase part, and I think you're just so focused on like, what are these two? Are they really going to do this? Are they going to hold up the diner right now? You're kind of like, you can't wait to see what's going to happen here because it's got to go somewhere. You know what I mean? It would be disappointing if it didn't. So yeah, I think I think it paced out okay at the beginning. It kept my attention and made me wonder, what the hell's about to happen. So, and I
we're
think
immediately left hanging because they don't return to the diner until
Right.
the end of the movie.
Right.
Well, and that's where we get back to Matt's point that it's a non-linear film. I think if they had cut this in a linear fashion, this film would not be the film it is today. I think people would be bored with it. I think it's the non-linear way that he cut the film that makes it special to some degree. That gives it the magic that it has.
Now, I wonder if there's a draft where like he wrote it linear and then, using what a lot of people do is like post-it notes. They're looking at scenes and he was wondering, well, I like how this goes together, but maybe we'll just tell it out of order. I don't think he's the first person to do this, but he certainly made it a trend for at least a little while. Oh, P.S. Tarantino didn't write Natural Born Killers by himself. That was collaborative effort with two other guys whose names you don't know. Go on.
I think on that point, I'm sorry, man. I know I cut you off again, but let me get this out since Joey kind of brought up. I think that originally, I gotta get it out. I gotta get it all out. I think he meant to write this in a way that he was going to have other writer directors come in and write parts of it and film it like he did with Four Rooms. That was the original intention of this film. So
that was a collaboration. Yeah.
I think that's where this comes from. And then he didn't end up doing that, which I don't think we'd have the same movie had he. I think that's, him writing the whole thing kept the magic because let's face it, Four Rooms did not go the way anybody thought it would. You watched and you're like, wow, that was super disappointing. So I think had that happened with Pulp Fiction, we'd all be there. This we would not be talking about this movie today.
Funny that you should mention viewing it linearly, because that was actually one of my questions later on after we covered the story. But I'll go ahead and ask the question anyway, since you've already segued to it. Do you? Obviously, Tim, you've already decided that it wouldn't work as well linearly. I'm on the other hand, I think it would still work linearly. It would help the Vincent Vega character because you see him dead halfway through the movie, and then he comes back towards the end. But yeah, honestly, in my opinion, I think it would still work as a linear story.
I didn't get confused. Like I saw the weird clothes earlier. They don't explain it, And so, it is a discovery process where you're like, when did this happen within the story? And his death really kind of lets you know. It's like, oh,
right,
that already happened.
I mean, yeah, it's not super choppy where you can't put the scenes together in your head. But if he didn't do that, I think it would still work as a film. How about you, Andy? What do you think?
It's so funny. I don't know that I've ever thought about it as how it would play, in its linear fashion, because I think that it being disjointed and it being kind of cut up really is part of the gimmick of the movie, and I think a lot of the reason why the movie is so successful is because of that gimmick. Now, I do think that the characters are strong enough, and the dialogue is strong enough, and everything that's happening in the movie is compelling enough that we're still going to be, into it and still be invested. But I feel like that it being spliced up and told so out of time is really what makes it as special as it is. And I do remember the first time that I watched it. You watch that first section with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, and then you go this almost whole length of a movie, and then at the very end they come back and you're kind of transported back to the opening scene, and it was kind of like this. Oh, now, oh my gosh, how crazy is this? They're gonna run into these people who we have seen just like blow off somebody's head, what's going to happen next. So I think it's really interesting the way that it is pieced together. I think, like you said, I think it would work, but I think there's the magic of the movie kind of comes from it being told out of linear time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it definitely was a revolutionary new way of storytelling. I mean, yeah, there's probably been a movie in the past, but Pulp
Reservoir
Fiction.
Dogs.
Yeah, okay, Reservoir Dogs. The other Quentin Tarantino movie. But yeah, this one definitely launched the whole movies out of sequence. I mean, we've already talked about Four Rooms, which again was tied to Quentin Tarantino. Is there any other movies out there that Quentin didn't have his hands on that kind of does that, out of time, out of sequence thing? Memento doesn't count.
Memento.
Yeah, it came later. So did Four Rooms. So, this is something we should have researched before.
Yeah.
Going to Reddit.
Rashomon, but that's a whole different other type of thing, because it's telling, it's kind of going back and retelling the story from another perspective as well. So you've got it not only out of time, but also from a different point of view. So
Right.
It's kind of this, it's doing multiple different things so to keep the story interesting. But I hate that I can't think of any other one.
Funeral Parade of Roses, 1969. Someone is proclaiming it as the GOAT of chaotic nonlinear narrative.
Okay.
So he wasn't the first. He's just the most well-known.
Yeah.
I'd say other than that, probably most of the movies we've seen that would even come close would be the ones that would start off with some kind of scene, and then you'd see 5 minutes of a scene and be like 30 years ago, then it would flash back to like 30 years ago or something, and then you'd watch the whole film. That would make that beginning piece, make sense, and then they would have a little bit at the end, and that would tie it up, but it wouldn't be completely nonlinear. It would just be there would be like 5 minutes of the end, the whole movie, and then the other 5 minutes of the end kind of thing. That was probably as close as we got, other than one Joey just mentioned.
Gotcha.
By the way, the movie I just mentioned, Funeral Parade of Roses, I'm just going to read you a little bit about that. While dealing drugs on the side, Gondo operates the Gannett, a gay bar in Tokyo, where he has hired a stable of transvestites to service the customers.
Where do you pick this stuff up, Joey?
That's just the first sentence. Reddit told me that it was told out of sequence. So
Okay.
That's not the only notable thing about the movie, apparently. It's summed up as the trials and tribulations of Eddie and other transvestites in Japan.
I feel like Joey might have found this
Ladyboys, if you will.
film in the room with the little curtain in the back of the video store. I think that's where this movie came from.
Let's try to segue away from wherever Joey's taking this and head back to the story.
I answered a question, man.
Yes.
They're like, who did it first? Found out. You could go back to the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I believe that opens in the same place that movie ends, but you're confused by the opening, especially if you're not paying attention. And at the end, you realize, oh, this is where we were all along.
Oh, okay.
So, there's been out of sequence storytelling, but when you're having multiple narratives told out of sequence, if you do it wrong, you could really lose the audience.
Yeah.
Well, what about the Wild Bunch? We just watched that one and reviewed it. It's kind of got that's flashback sequences.
Those are flashbacks,
but they're poorly executed flashbacks.
They were
them.
shit.
Yeah.
You know what the flashbacks needed? They needed the wavy lines.
I think there were some wavy lines. They just didn't make the noise.
Yeah. After that intro, we get the really cool credits, the Pulp Fiction, and then we get everybody's names, and we get the really cool surfer music. And then one thing that I kind of noticed is that the music kind of gets turned down a little bit, and it sounds like it's coming from a radio. And then we open up to Jules and Vern in the car, and the music just kind of like flows right out of the radio in the car. And I thought that was kind of neat, the way that Quentin the way that they just kind of pulled you into the story right then and there. And then we get this wonderful dialogue and conversation with Vincent and Jules. And we find that Vincent's back from a 3-year stint over in Amsterdam, and all he's talking about is Amsterdam. And is it just me, or does it seem like Royale with cheese has now been ingrained into pop culture because of this scene?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been quoted to death.
Plus, it's one of those facts you can throw out when your kids haven't seen this movie, which they should not. And you're like, hey, you know what they call a quarter pound of cheese overseas? It's a Royale. So yeah. And then they think
Want
you're
to
really
find
smart.
out on family movie night?
Yeah. 2 years later, when they watch this movie, like, I know where you got that from, and I'm ashamed you watched this film.
Daddy, why is there so much feet and butt stuff?
Well, then speaking of feet, so then we get the conversation of we find that Vincent is taking out his boss's wife, which I thought was, I think it's just kind of unusual. So your mob boss wants you to take out his wife,
Oh,
and
I figured it out.
and I liked.
Yeah, go on.
I thought it was funny how Sam Jackson's like, you mean take out? No, take her out on a
Hold his finger up like
Yeah.
take her out. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what they do. They kill
exactly.
people.
But no, just
Take
take
out
her
his
out
wife?
to a movie
Yeah,
or a
what'd you
nice
do?
dinner because the boss is going to be out of town. I think they said that he's going to be in Vegas or something.
It sounds like a date.
Yes, it does sound like a date. And then that's when we get the story of Antoine or
Johnny Rocky
Nakamura,
Horror. Johnny
aka
Rocky Horror.
yes, Tony Rocky Horror.
Tony Rocky Horror. Sorry.
Yeah.
Then they go to Johnny Rockets later to eat. I messed it up.
So we get the story of Tony.
No, it's not even called Johnny Rockets. I fucked that up too. Fat Rabbit Cocksucker Slims or something. Go
Jack
ahead.
Rabbit Slims.
Thank you.
So this review is not going to be non-linear review as we just bounce
Exactly.
around.
All of our reviews are not.
That is true. Well,
We forgot to talk about something.
so we learned about Tony and how he evidently he was thrown out of a window by Marcellus Wallace because, and according to Jules, because of a foot massage. I was curious if maybe it was because he slept with his wife, or maybe he stole money from Marcellus Wallace. You guys have any ideas?
Oh, it was definitely Mia. Definitely reveals later that it had something to do with Marcellus's business, because as she explained, the only time he ever touched me is when he shook my hand at my wedding.
Right.
So clearly, it was just water cooler talk.
I think that's one of those situations where if you're a mob boss or mob king or whatever, man, you let those stories ride. You don't ever correct people because it builds on the persona and the legend of who you are and scares the ever-living shit out of people. So I think if that was the story that went out there, he's never going to correct that, and he's going to let everybody think that, that's what happened just because they're like, oh shit, did you hear what he did? This guy touched his wife, they threw him out of windows. So
Well, think of it from a legal aspect as well. So if they're trying to prove in a court of law he threw him out the window, and everybody's saying it's because of something going on with the wife, and there's nothing to support that because it's bullshit. So
Right.
he has no motive, and then he's innocent. So he's not going to advertise to anybody what that business was that went sideways. But clearly, if you try to double cross, take money, or keep something of value and not tell Marcellus Wallace about it, you get fucked up. And clearly they were going to kill him when they threw him off 4-story building, but he lucked out and just got all fucked up with a speech impediment in the greenhouse. So they just maybe there was no finishing him off. They're like, we got to get the fuck out of here now.
Right.
But he made his point. The other guys, stutters too much to even fucking tell anybody. And Marcellus later on, he tells you, like, in another situation, he says, you're not going to ever discuss this with anybody. This is between you, me, and that rapist motherfucker over there.
Right.
I think the magic of that scene, though, everybody focuses on that story. And for me, that's not what that scene is all about. It's about two guys that are on their way to do a hit, just having a casual conversation. They're even pulling their guns out of the trunk. You get the cool camera scene from, where there's somebody's in the trunk with the camera and stuff. And they stop for just a second and ask, like, how many motherfuckers are up there? Oh, we should have shotguns. And they just keep talking about this. They go up to the door. He's like, what time you got? He's like, oh, it's, it's like 1:45. He's like, well, we got a couple minutes. And they go down the hall because they want to finish this fucking conversation before they go in and shoot these guys up. So I'm like, that is really the magic of the scene for me. It's like two guys like, hey, let's, we got time. Let's finish this. And then they go, okay, let's get our game face on. So
It had to be at 7:30, Tim.
Yeah.
If you watch it again, they'd never knocked.
No, they never did. The door
Jules' cousin answered the door at 7:30, just like he said he would.
Yeah, the door just opens up automatically. There's no knock, which I thought was
he didn't want anybody to know they were coming. He just opens the door and they're there.
Yeah.
He was acting like he's going to go look for the paper or some shit.
The other thing that I thought was interesting about that whole scene, though, was the way it was shot, because we follow them up to the door, and then the camera stays at the door and shoots down the hallway. So you get this long shot of the guys walking down the end of the hallway, and it's the way it's framed. You know, you see the hallway, you see the doorwell to the next hall, and they're just sitting there talking. And I just thought that was a unique way to kind of give the feel of this hallway and this conversation, how it's just like an everyday kind of thing.
That's the kind of thing that
Well,
Jimmy
Very
was
ordinary looking shitty apartment building.
Very much so. I think too, it's really setting up the relationship between Jules and Vincent, and it's by doing this super casual conversation while they're in the midst of like going to kill some people. They're just having a talk. So it's like it sets up that they've worked together before. They probably go way back. They've probably been pretty close friends together, doing this kind of stuff all the time, probably before Vincent went to Amsterdam. And it's just kind of reconnecting and showing that they have this bond. And I think it's a really clever way of doing that by just having like what is the most I don't know, kind of laid back conversation to have, and that it keeps going. That they could just get their game faces on and stop and wait, but no, they're more concerned with talking about what happened to this guy and what Vincent has to do. And yeah, I just think it's a really great way of setting up who these guys are and who they are to each other.
They both know that they're killers, and there's some level of respect with one another, but at the same time, they both have scenes where they're upset. Jules tells him, "You're starting to piss me off. Back off." And then later we hear about, you don't drive a car when it's in the red. So they both they know where they can go because they're violent people, and they're trying to actually diffuse the situation by giving the other person an opportunity to cool it off a little bit.
Right.
And then they just move on because things are happening. It's interesting. It's like, these are murderers. They're hitmen.
Well, I think this is where we start to go off the beaten path as far as into Tarantino land. I mean, normally up till this point, if we'd have seen a film like this with a couple of hitmen, that scene would have been them talking about going, how many guys are in there, getting in the trunk. You got your guns. Let's put on our vests. Okay, this is how we're going to do it. It would have been the build up to the scene. And
they wouldn't have been main characters. They would have had one name or no name or numbers next to, thug number 4.
But even if they were main characters, it would have been all business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of two guys just shooting the shit on the way to their day job. This is their day job. Like, this is just what they do. It's, where normally it would be, very calculated, and they'd be kind of talk about what they're going to do and how they're going to breach the room and, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't. It took all that tactical stuff out that you're used to seeing, and just like, this is just what we do as our day job. Like, we don't even think about it. It's just, let's talk about this foot thing. All right, 7:30 in the door we go, kind of thing. So I think that's where Tarantino shines a little bit as a writer, because he makes it a more personable, human thing. These are just people this is their day job. I mean, that's how he approaches. This is what these people do. And this is a day in the life. So that's part of the magic of the film. It's a day in the life of all these really weird, fucked up people.
I think
they don't kill people every day, but sometimes they get asked to kill people.
I think he has a great way of humanizing his characters. You get to get inside their heads and get more of an empathy with each character, whether they're a good guy or a bad guy, a hero, an anti-hero, or whatever. You get into their heads and you get to understand, how they think and everything. And that's a great tool that Quentin uses in his storytelling.
Long before I drank your milkshake. They've got Jules eating your big Kahuna burger and then finishing your soda.
Yes.
He's like, that hit the spot. Never blinks, stares him right in the eye. It's like, yeah, I'm in charge here. I'm intimidating you by literally eating your lunch, or in this case, a strange breakfast.
And I got to say, I like how when he comes in, he's like, oh, no, go ahead, sit down. Don't get up. It's okay, flock seagulls. Just sit down. And then Jules immediately crosses the room. Not Jules. Vincent immediately crosses the room. Has already taken position behind those guys. So that
he's not a talker during this.
Yeah, and you know that these guys are professionals. They've already scanned the room. They've seen all the threats. They've kind of sized everybody up. Jules is making this awesome speech, which leads us into Ezekiel 25:17. I don't have it written down. I don't have it memorized, but you know,
they paraphrase it anyway.
yeah, it is paraphrased, but basically it's, you know, I am the Lord and vengeance upon thee. And then basically empties an entire clip into Brett.
Well, he
Yeah,
shoots the guy on the
with
couch
flashes
first.
of gold.
Yes, yeah, well,
I like how he shoots the guy on the couch first, though, when he's like, you know, he's talking,
Yeah.
and he's like, what? And he shoots the guy on the couch, like, do I got your attention now? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, holy shit, yes, you
Yeah,
do,
he already
sir.
told him once, I don't want to,
Yeah.
you're not going to talk your way out of this. And the
Yeah.
guy proceeds to try to talk his way out of this, and he just interrupted it with,
did you guys notice that when he did shoot the guy on the couch, there was no muzzle flash?
I did
No,
not notice that.
Yeah, so as I'm watching, I'm like, all you see is him hold the gun up, you hear the sound, and then he pulls the gun away, and then you get the reaction of the guy getting shot, but you don't see a muzzle flash. You don't get the action of the gun going off. I was like, huh.
it could be that the blank didn't generate a flash, and that they weren't going to go back and try to paint one in
Right.
like they
Yeah.
would today. I will have to go back and watch that on the 4K, but my guess is there was probably some gun recoil. So they might have had like a quarter load of gunpowder or something like that. One of those things we'll have to go back and overanalyze. And this is a movie that lends itself to that. So let's get to the briefcase.
Well, I think before we go to the briefcase, I one of the things I want to point out is that whole thing, Joey, where you point out Samuel Jackson eating his lunch or basically his breakfast, that's what got him this job. I mean, Tarantino originally wrote that part for him, and then a guy named Paul Caldron came in audition, and I guess he did really, really well, so they were really considering him. And so Samuel Jackson found out, he's like, oh hell no, this dude's not taking my role. So he flies back, comes in for a second audition, brings in a bag with a burger and a drink, sets it down, stares those two guys down that are auditioning, eating that burger and just talking to them like that. The one guy's like, shit, I thought he was going to shoot us right there. He was terrified. Like, hire that guy. So that's what got him the role, is they put that right in there because they were so terrified with his whole, performance during the audition doing that they're like, this is just fucking gold. So
they were eating their lunch and he was auditioning and he went up and ate their lunch.
No, he brought it in with him. So he brought in a bag, just a burger and a soda, set it down, and just used it as props to improvise that whole thing in front of them and just stared them down the whole time while he's eating it and doing the lines. They're like, oh, dude, that's just cold. This dude terrifying me. So yeah, that's how he.
This guy, you gotta hire him. He brings his own props. I mean, you can't get out of that. And hey, Tim, you know the guy Paul? You know he does show up in Pulp Fiction.
He's
the bartender.
Right.
He shows up later at the fight. He's in 4 rooms. He likes lighters.
Yeah, my name's Paul, and this is between you guys, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did say that. That's between y'all.
Yeah, that's it.
Something like that.
All right, Joey, now we can go to the briefcase.
So what's in there besides an incandescent light?
All right.
I mean, that's what's really in the briefcase.
Well, yeah, that's
maybe a mirror.
That's been a topic for, several generations of people talking about Pulp Fiction. As you probably checked, the combination on the briefcase was 666.
Mm-hmm.
There's a theory that later on when we see the back of Marcellus Wallace's big head.
Before you go into theory, Matt.
Okay.
Why doesn't everybody say what they thought was the briefcase the first time they seen it? So we'll start with you, Matt. What did you think it was?
Okay, so when I saw this the first time, I thought it was gold bricks because I'd never seen Reservoir Dogs. And yeah, because the light shining up on it was a yellow light, I immediately thought of gold bricks.
All right, how about you, Andy?
Yeah, it was the same. Also gold bricks, just because it was like I took it very literally. Like, oh, this is shining bright back at them, so it's got to be gold.
Okay, how about you, Joey?
It was gold, but the first rumor I ever heard was like maybe it was the Cup of Christ because 5 years earlier, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that was still in people's brains. They were buying VHS tapes at McDonald's during the holiday season, weird things like that in the drive-thru. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah.
How about if they had Pulp Fiction in the drive-thru?
Yeah. You
get your Gimp cup here. Put it right next to the Grimace.
All right, what about you then, Tim?
Grimace is a butt plug.
There you go. I also thought it was gold in the briefcase because of the way that it shined. I was like, oh, it's got to be gold. but I did a bunch of research into this. So now, man, I'm going to let you go ahead and say what you were going to say. And then if you'll give me a couple moments, I'd like to go through the theories that I have found on the internet while researching this.
Okay. All right. So the biggest theory, and one that supposedly Quentin Tarantino has mentioned, is that it's actually Marcellus Wallace's soul. And the three guys that were in the room were demons, and he sold his soul to those demons. And the fact that he had a Band-Aid on the back of his neck is because in Chinese lore, to remove one's soul, you had to punch a hole in the back of your neck and get it sucked out from your brainstem.
Those were the biggest pussy demons in the world.
Yeah. Now I've heard that there also could have been the Four Horsemen, because you've got was it Petulance laying on the couch? He's all sickly looking and everything. And you've got Death, who's waiting behind the door with the big hand cannon, and so on and so forth. So each one of them kind of represented that. Was another theory I heard who they were. So
I think it was a heist. They were fed inside information. Marcellus may have had influence on like security to like leave this, that, or the other open or turned off, etc. They went and did the heist, and they found something extra, and they're like, you know what? He didn't mention that. Marcellus doesn't know that that was in the safe, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they robbed a house of someone rich. If he doesn't know about it, then it's ours, and we don't have to split it with him. I think that's what happened. I think it's some beautiful golden artifact, clearly worth a lot of money, and they kept it from Marcellus Wallace, and they got ratted out by Jules's cousin.
All right.
So what are the other theories, Tim?
Here's what I came up with, and I tried to go with the ones I thought were the most relevant. Here are the main theories. So the first one is always, it was the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs. Okay. Which makes a lot of sense. I'd never seen it, so I would not have put that together. But anybody who's big into Quentin Tarantino and seen that movie first, that's the first thing they went to. The second is Marcellus' soul. So that's usually the biggest one. The last big one that I usually read about was it was Elvis's gold suit from True Romance. So I thought that was an interesting one. It comes up a lot. So I was like, okay, now here's the ones where we start to get, a little off the tracks with it. And these are all Reddit theories. I'm going to go from the most mundane to the most incredibly crazy one that they had out there. So number one is heroin. And that would kind of make sense. Drugs. Second is gold. So that kind of goes along with what most of us were thinking. The third one is...
That would mean that Tim Roth's character is a complete fucking heroin addict because he's like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. The third one is
brown dope.
Printing plates for American money, which would also shine possibly inside of the briefcase when the light hit it, because they're very shiny if you've ever seen one. The fourth one is the Holy Grail, so that lends to what Joey's read. The fifth one is an Oscar, because that's what Quentin Tarantino wanted.
That's funny.
Yeah. The sixth one, the case presents to the viewer what they most desire. So that's why every time somebody looked in the case, they're like, oh, is that what I think it is? And the other person would be like, well, yeah, because each of them were seeing something that they desired, which I thought was an interesting take on it. The second to the last, and not quite the most outlandish, but I thought it was funny. Somebody said, I think it's the alien remains from Repo Man from the trunk, which I thought was kind of funny. Not very many people lend credence to that one, but I was entertained enough to put it on the list. And the last one is God himself, which leads to either the Four Horsemen or the demons or something like that. Like, because there is a lot of religious overtones in this film. And, anybody who's seen this, is holding the case is kind of safe, because at the point where they're holding the case, that's when the guy comes out and shoots them and all the bullets miss them and stuff. Anybody who physically has the case in their hand at any given time seems impervious to anything bad happening. But as soon as they lose it, bad things, befall them. Like, those guys, the kids had the case and then they took it from them, and then sure enough, they all got killed. So somebody went to a very lengthy explanation into this and pointing out how everybody was saved by it. Now I'm not going to go into that, but I thought it was an interesting concept as well. So that was the most relevant and most outlandish theories I could find that kind of came up over and over again. So I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Gotcha. It's interesting. The only ones that I've heard have been the soul and the diamonds. So
Ving Rhames confirmed that he cut the back of his head shaving.
Yep.
Let instead of trying to like shoot around it, I don't think we're going to be able to accurately cover that up. It's going to look like shit. Fuck it. Let's own it and, make it prominent. And let's do it. Let's introduce him that way. He's got a big Band-Aid on the back of his neck.
So there's one last thing I wanted to mention about from a film standpoint in that scene with Vincent and Jules killing the guys. Just for like a split second, the frame code goes completely red, and then it just continues on. I just thought that was a neat little visual cue that there was like all this death and destruction happening. Right
when they
there.
were shooting?
Yeah, when they were shooting, it was just
it flashes gold.
Does it flash gold? Because I thought it flashed red.
Looked pretty golden when I just watched it.
I must have missed it completely. My old eyes can't pick up on that.
So then, after they get the case, we then we jump to Vincent, the story about Vincent and Mia. Or we cut to a bar, nudie club, and we see Bruce Willis sitting at a table, and we hear that wonderful Ving Rhames voice giving him the speech about boxers, and basically tells him about pride and you're feeling aged and old and just like all this stuff just kind of just dour and down on Bruce Willis. And then what's the first shot we actually see of Marcellus Wallace? But his hands handing Bruce Willis an envelope full of money. And I thought that was very apropos to the story, because Marcellus Wallace has all this control and has all this money, and the first thing we see is his hand with this money out to Bruce Willis. And so what does he do? He takes it, and then he says, "Yes, I will," or he tells him, take a dive in the fifth.
Very much. He's like, "Yes, I will be your bitch."
Yeah. And then we get to see John Travolta or Jules and Vincent walking into the bar in completely different clothes than what they were wearing like less than 30 seconds ago.
Goofy shorts and t-shirts.
Yeah. And then of course, they go up to the bar and we meet Paul, and again, they kind of rib Vincent a little more about taking out Mia. And then one
a confrontation.
Yeah, and then one of many sequences where someone has to go to the bathroom. Jules disappears to the bathroom, and we see Bruce Willis or Butch walk up to the bar and have a little confrontation with Vincent. Vincent calls.
What did he ask the bartender for? Red Apple cigarettes, which they would come back around in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
As
Red
well
Apple
as
cigarettes.
the Big Kahuna Burgers make a comeback too. I think those are two staples of Tarantino's throughout.
Did anyone else get like "Look Who's Talking" stuck in their head when they seen both Bruce Willis and John Travolta in the same frame together?
It's like, oh, reunion.
They'd obviously been to movie premieres together,
Yeah.
but it's the first time they probably got to act together on screen.
Yeah. Which the other thing I thought was interesting was that this movie kind of relaunches John Travolta's career, and it kind of helps reinvigorate. Yes, thank you. Reinvigorate Bruce Willis's, because I mean, after Die Hard 2, yeah, he was still bringing people into the theater, but his movies weren't as big as like Die Hard or Die Hard 2. And then this movie came out and it kind of launched him back up to that stardom again.
But ironically, he got the biggest paycheck out of this. They actually, I think he got like $3 million out of this, and it was a $5 million budget. So everybody else got like part of $2 million, and he walked away with $3 million of the $5 million budget for the actors.
So Die Hard 2 still made big money. It wasn't as, critically acclaimed. Hudson Hawk came out in 91.
Yeah.
So this was his rebound from Hudson Hawk, which was a box office and critical disaster.
Yeah.
I like Hudson Hawk for what it is, but it's not good.
It's not.
It was a rebound of sorts.
It's good for a bad movie. It's one of those movies you watch knowing it's bad when you walk into it and going, okay, I can find this entertaining.
Yeah.
There's good parts.
So then
Frank Stallone. That's all I gotta say.
So then to diffuse the situation, Marsalis calls Vincent over and they have a talk. And then we cut from that straight to the drug house. Thoughts on the whole Vincent and Mia situation where, or the drug house with Vincent is sitting there, just BSing with everybody about. I mean, it's kind of an interesting dialogue sequence again, but I'm just kind of curious what your guys' take on that whole thing.
I think it would have really made us feel and think terrible things about Marty McFly had Eric Stoltz remained in that role. Yeah, he's definitely he's wearing pajamas and what do you call it? A robe. It ain't even that. So with shorts, t-shirts, and a robe. That's all he ever wears. In fact, Tarantino's later wearing a robe. But this guy's, smoking cigarettes and eating Fruit Brute, which I don't think had come back yet at that point.
No, I think it's about a 10-year-old box of cereal at that point.
Yeah.
No judgment on eating cereal for dinner, but just smoke a cigarette in your house and eat it. You have very low aspirations.
I mean, listen, I think he's doing okay. He's selling heroin to gangsters. Kind of has them on speed dial, too.
Yeah, very powerful heroin.
And not only is he selling it, but he's selling it like he's a guy selling jewelry. It's like, well, you could get the, that diamond, but it's not as clear as this one. And then if you want this, well, now we're going to have to kick it up because its clarity is really high. It's just like it's crazy. It's like he's selling backroom jewelry, but instead it's heroin. It's just really weird.
It is
trying to
go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say trying to hook Vincent up with the girl that's hanging out on the couch.
Yeah.
Just wheeling and dealing left and right.
And I didn't realize this is like a celebration, almost a 20th year celebration of the Pepsi Challenge. I mean, he references the Pepsi Challenge, and it turns out that was May 1975, and this comes out in 94. But I knew what the Pepsi Challenge was. It's like, you try this, you try that, now you tell me it's better. Yeah. But that was interesting. I still say Pepsi Challenge to this day. I think it kept Pepsi Challenge in pop culture.
The other neat thing is, again, another really cool shot. That whole sequence when he's selling the drugs to Vincent is where the camera's positioned, because it's like kind of down low beside the bed, and we're actually seeing the whole interaction from that angle. So you kind of see the drugs kind of in the mirror almost, and it's very, very relaxed situation. You can tell that these guys are friends. Again, the whole conversational atmosphere where they're having a deal, but they're also just shooting the shit. Especially, when he's sitting there and he's talking about his car. He's like, man, I had my car in storage for 3 years, and the first day I come out, some guy scratches it. Keyed it, yeah. And he's just sitting there with a stack of money, just having this conversational thing again, just to help kind of move the plot, get you more in the mindset to be more empathetic to the characters that you're seeing. And the other thing that I thought was really funny is when Eric Stoltz is trying to set him up with Trudy, and Travolta goes, "Oh, is that the girl with the crap in her face?
The shit in her face."
Yeah. No, man, that's my wife.
My wife. And he goes, "That hurts, man." he was apologizing to him and laughing about it.
Yeah.
But he does.
I watched the subtitles. He goes, "That hurts, man."
But he does end it like professionally. He looks at him. He's like, "I'm so very sorry. I have no more balloons left. Will a baggie be okay?" He's like, "Yeah, whatever. Put it in the baggie." So it's still the consummate professional, regardless of the slam on his wife's, facial jewelry.
And then we get that really, really slow-mo scene of Vincent shooting up. And being a guy who doesn't like needles, I got a little twitchy. And I got to ask Tim, what did you think of that whole thing? You being an anti-needle guy as well.
Yeah, no, I could. It's like a horror film for me. Hands are over the eyes. I'm like, you just tell me when I can look. I'm telling my wife, she's like, I can't watch that either. So we're both just like waiting, like, do you think it's safe? You're kind of spreading the fingers apart to look real quick, So yeah, it's any scene with a needle is always, I can watch a guy get shot. I can see somebody lose their head, whatever, run over, blown up. But you bring a needle out, I'm done. That's
and that's the milder of the two needle scenes.
I know, yeah.
That one's almost clinical. And then he, is on drugs, and I guess they simulate that with him driving in his car that he loves.
Yeah. And now that we're, driving in a car, so I immediately looked at that and I thought, wasn't it a few minutes? Wait, is this the one where it looks like it's rear projected?
Poorly, like it's from a bad 1950s movie. Yeah.
Cab ride as well.
Yeah, so
but it should be surreal here because like he's in another altered state. He's taking a ride. How do you communicate that? I mean, what's the movie with the double dildo and the drugs and the guy loses his arm?
One I had watched, Joey. One I haven't watched.
It's got Morbius in it.
I think Andy said it.
Yeah, Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream. I mean, they had their own. You get to see the irises like get huge and stuff like that. Like there's been different ways. It's like you're trying to communicate to an audience who may have never done any drugs whatsoever. That these people are having an intense experience.
Right.
I think you just play the Doors music to do that, don't you?
That would have also worked.
Yeah.
It also works in the movie The Doors.
And Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
So then Vincent shows up at Mia's house, and you can tell it. He's just completely stoned out of his mind. And
he's having trouble walking to the door.
Yeah. And he's like walking around. I mean, as an actor, he definitely portrayed that rather well. I don't know if he was a method actor and he really did get all hopped up on heroin to do the scene.
No, they actually brought in a heroin addict, a recovering heroin addict, to explain it to him, like, this is how you should act. And I think he described it to him as, imagine you drank a bunch of vodka and then you're sitting in a hot tub. That's kind of what a heroin high feels like. So... Which, if you watch him, he's kind of swimming. He's just kind of floating in the doors. So I think he kind of nailed it.
Yeah. And
that leads us to Fun with Intercoms, which became a wonderful meme.
Yes.
Of John Travolta kind of like wondering, oh, where'd she go? Where am I?
See, that's where I see the error in the film when she's talking to him. And she's like, I'm on the intercom. And he's like, where's the intercom? She's like, over there in the wall next to those, those statues. And then he walks over. Fellows. And then she's like, you got to push the button for me to be able to hear you. Well, if that's the case,
did hear him.
You answered him already. So why does he got to push a button? So,
well, maybe she just couldn't hear him very well.
I'm guessing that she probably said those things as pretty common knowledge. And she's like, okay, well, he would probably say, oh, how do I, hello, or whatever. Yeah. I think she was just assuming of what he was saying, or she could read lips really well.
That's what I told my wife. She said, how does she know? I said, and I looked over, like I'm all knowing. I said, because she can read lips. Oh, okay.
If you want to see a similar scene to something like that is just truly hilarious, watch Samurai Cop. There's a sequence in Samurai Cop from like the late 90s, and it's kind of at the tip of my, because I'll get to that later. But there's a scene where the main guy is down on the ground, and there's a woman up in a helicopter, and she's talking to him without a radio, but yet they can have an entire conversation together. If you ever get a chance, check it out, Samurai Cop.
I think the only movie that illustrated that that's the movie logic is probably Shazam.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They're probably little less than quarter a mile away from one another, but they're up high, but they wouldn't be able to hear each other unless they were in one of those. They were on the other side of a bridge, and it was that echo effect.
Yeah,
there was no way. Yeah, he didn't have super hearing. He's like, what?
Yeah.
I think you're saying something to me right now.
And again, in that scene with the intercom and the guessing what he's saying, is there's really cool music playing too.
Of course.
And on all things, a 4-track. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know the last time I seen a 4-track in somebody's house.
I think it's just a reel. It's not a 4-track.
Well, Tarantino's she's almost like in a little studio, and Tarantino was kind of obsessed with the 70s. So, I mean, from the rundown apartment building that never changed their carpeting on the stairs to the glitzy, glamoury looking Marcellus Wallace's house, but yet it's dated. You know, they didn't really update it. The cameras, I mean, those would have still, they could have had color cameras in his house at that point, but they don't. They're black and white. Which that leads us to our first deleted scene where she continues to kind of almost torment Vincent because she comes out holding a high-8 camera and kind of interviewing him. And Tarantino cut it. It was on the VHS. I distinctly remember watching it on there. And he talked about it, and he was recommending to people, he's like, you know what? Super VHS or high-8 or whatnot. He's like, if you need to shoot a movie, shoot it on high-8 and then blow it up to film, and it'll look like bad 16 millimeter. Now, while he got behind that, I got to tell you, it wouldn't be cheap to transfer anything to 35 millimeter at any point in history. So, but moving on, they go out to eat.
Yeah. Actually, I want to correct. Yes, Tim, you are right. I should have said 2-track reel to reel, not a 4-track. My bad.
That's all right. I mean, come on, let's face it. It's the first MP3 player. Dude, I had one of those when I was a kid. I love that thing. You put like 10 billion songs on it, as long as you didn't break it when you're trying to, spool it up, because we don't see the iPod till 2001. So that's how you got your jam on if you want to listen to a lot of good songs all in a row.
I still have a red wax crayon for marking reel to reel so you could cut it. It sucks. It sucks big time.
I'll take your word on that. I haven't cut film.
Well, no, we were literally cutting audio tape, and you cut it on a diagonal, and then you tape it together. But to mark where you're going to cut, you get this big wax pencil.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been using it for years because, like, I just did it for the one stupid project or whatever. Was already working on dated equipment, and then now I sign cards, and I put a smiley face in the Joe, and then I put little red hair on it with the red wax pencil, which is now not very much shorter at all, and it's 24 years old, 25 years old.
Dang.
I'm going to use it tomorrow to mark the crack in my windshield to see if it grows, and if it does, I'm going to have to replace my fucking windshield.
See, there you go. The first MP3 player in this movie, and Joey creates the first emoji with his red crayon.
All right. Well, now we're going out to dinner to Jack Rabbit Slim's, which is a 50s, 60s kind of diner. I thought that it was kind of neat, and apparently, like, other than paying Bruce Willis's paycheck, the most amount of money was used to build the set, which I think was rather impressive, because I mean, you had a center stage, you had all these cars around it, and then you had all the normal dining room seats, and we got to see a lot of iconic 50s and 60s actors and actresses and musicians in the room. So
and
yeah,
an angry Buddy Holly played by Steve Buscemi.
Yes, yeah.
They had as many impersonators there as they had patrons.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were overstaffed that night, and the place wasn't big enough to hold them all.
I was rather impressed by the maitre d', Ed Sullivan. I thought he had the guy did a really good impersonation of him.
He brought a really big show.
Thought he was Nixon.
No,
yes.
He's introducing you to the really big show.
And this whole scene where Vincent and Mia are sitting at this table in a classic 50s Chevy, or no, it was Cadillac. Sorry. You get to see more of a rapport between the two. I mean, they had this great conversation again, Quentin Tarantino's conversational dialogue, and you get to truly see how beautiful a woman Mia is, and Uma Thurman. I mean, this is kind of the movie that put Uma Thurman on the map. I mean, yeah, she was in previous movies, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Was it Mystic Pizza? Or am I getting that confused with somebody else?
Julia Roberts was Mr.
Okay.
Pizza.
That's Julia Roberts.
Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, yes. Dangerous Liaisons. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, this is the movie that kind of made Uma Thurman a household name. And I just thought it was neat that we get to see her and embody this Mia Wallace character. And, you know, I just kind of curious, what do you guys think of the whole Jack Rabbit Slim's conversation and the whole scenario that was going on in that room or in that diner?
I was going to say, I think it's another really good way of just kind of setting up this these two people who are just, you know, meeting each other kind of for the first time, probably outside of like general introductions. I imagine once Marcellus Wallace was married, there probably was an introduction to Mia at that time, but this is like, you know, now Vincent has to spend quality time with her, keep her happy, you know, but not cross that line. The one thing that I find totally depressing, though, is that I think a $5 milkshake now is the cheap milkshake because.
Yeah, I'm literally looking it up.
Like, man,
I didn't get Dairy Queen, but I looked at Oberweis. It's a regional thing. They have really nice, good milkshakes, and the small starts at $7.
Of course it does. Of course.
That's the
and
small.
Then if you go to a diner to get a really
the large
good,
is $9.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Like a good, like old-fashioned milkshake from a diner, you've got to be paying like $10 for that. But you know,
inflation sucks. Cheap. Let's look it up. 1994 inflation calculator. Timeout. Inflation calculator. Here we go. So we're gonna put $5.
You gotta be quicker, Joey. It's gonna keep inflating.
1994. I'm just going to go with January. We're going to go January to January. I don't think the months are going to matter too much, except in 2020. 30 years. Oh.
Ugh.
What is the buying power of $5 going from January 1994 to January of 2024? Can anyone guess what's the buying power of $5 back then today?
$12.50.
$10.55.
That's close.
So it would be, let's just say, well, let's be nice. $10 shake sounds better than $11 shake. So it's like, you'd have to update this movie, you're like, better be a damn good $10 shake. Has it got bourbon in it?
You know,
you're like, no, it's Shake Mix. This is Burger King.
You know, and I'm just curious, is that you go out to apparently have a nice dinner with somebody. What adult is going to not order a non-alcoholic beverage?
Me.
Maybe they didn't have a liquor license.
Because I'm cheap.
Okay, but you know,
I drink at home. I drink alone.
They both like
they
prefer drugs over alcohol.
Yeah, as I say, yeah, Andy said it right. Vince is already on heroin.
Mia's gonna go do a bump in a few minutes.
You know, it's kind of like the Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
Remember they were saying the temperance people were saying like, you know, $5 for a drink.
Yeah, that was in the Wild Bunch.
Someday it'll be $5 for a fucking milkshake.
There you go. So that drink's $15 there. Okay, Matt.
You're paying for the atmosphere.
So moving on a little bit from the shake, because we seem pretty infatuated with this milk beverage.
Yes,
Matt. This is it. This is where you get your superhero tie-in. Where's that? Can you tell me, Mr. Comic Book Guy?
No,
that was an uncomfortable silence.
Yeah, that was, man. It's like I'm stumped. I hate when I can't think of it. This is where you get John Travolta. He hits the floor and he does the Batman.
Oh,
the Bat-Tusi. Yeah. Gets the old fingers, does the old V's across the eyes. I'm like, oh, Matt's gonna eat this up.
Nobody fingered like Adam West.
I was more entertained with the fact that watching the scene, I know from an interview that Uma Thurman was very, very nervous about dancing with John Travolta because she was a big Saturday Night Live Fever fan, and so she says to him, she's like, you know, I feel a little nervous dancing with you since you know you've been in so many movies with dancing. You know, how should? And Travolta just says to her, just shut up and twist. And so that's what she did.
Nice.
And then, but before we get to the whole twisting and dancing, like Andy said, she goes and does a bump in the bathroom, and I just think it's funny that she says, "I have to go powder my nose," and she literally powders her nose.
Yeah. I like how they jammed all those women in front of that mirror too, and each one of them is just doing something different in front of the mirror. That was pretty good scene. I like to have that going on.
And
did anybody react to watching her just do that bump of cocaine? Like they're all so focused on, makeup, hairspray, whatever. And Uma's like, gotta.
My guess is they're probably used to seeing something like that in Hollywood or North Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, and based on that scene, Joey, I'm going to say that place was hopping that night, but most of the women seemed to be in the bathroom, like, prepping themselves up like, continuously. It's like they're all trying to get in front of that mirror, so they just weren't out on the floor.
Yeah. And then, let's see. Oh, the other thing that I like, and every once in a while I'll say that same line today is, don't you just love it when you go to the bathroom, when you come back, your food's waiting for you?
That is a pretty good feeling. That's how you make sure your food gets to you. Because if you sit there forever, it's never coming. You got to get up and go to the bathroom, because then they're going to slip it in and think it's going to be cold when you get back. I've done that. I don't know how many times I've actually left the table, looked at my wife and said, I'm going to go to the bathroom so our food will come. And it's sure as hell, as soon as I come back, food's there. So
then we get the dance off. And, it is funny that, like Tim said, I didn't catch it, but the Batusi. And, I'm kind of find it funny that there was nobody else dancing, or we didn't see like any other competitors for the dance off. So somehow miraculously they win. Did they win by default?
It would be weird if they showed everybody.
It would be.
You could do a Rocky montage.
That's
not Dancing with the Stars. It's Pulp Fiction.
That's what this movie needed, was a montage.
Yeah. Or you got to have that, like,
you wanted to see reactions of the other people who were like crossing their fingers, like, "Oh, we got it," and they're like, "Fuck." Instead, they just cut to, it's like they're back and she's holding the trophy.
Yeah. And then we get them in the house, and they're still happy, feeling pretty good. And I think that there was definitely a connection. You could see a connection between Mia and Vincent. And I'm just curious. So if the night didn't end it the way it did, do you think Vincent would end up sleeping with Mia?
Oh, hell yeah.
No. He literally gave himself a pep talk. He's like, you're going to go in there, you're going to drink your drink, and you're going to go home and jerk off. But he cut it back to even, hey, as soon as he steps outside, he doesn't even drink his drink. He says, "Look, Mia, I got to go."
And then
those are the words that comes out of his mouth before he even sees what's happened to him.
Yeah. And like, how much time took place between when he walks into the bathroom to when he comes out? Because it seems like some time has definitely passed. And I just couldn't help but wonder, okay, so one of the running gags in this movie is that John Travolta takes a lot of dumps.
And he likes to read.
Yeah. So my guess is, was he in the bathroom, and like after the pep talk, he's like, "Oh shoot, I gotta pinch one off," and then like he goes to the bathroom, and then like maybe 10 minutes later he comes out of the bathroom.
Well, he's swimming, so he's still pretty high. So time might not be going at the same pace for him that it is for the rest of us mere mortals. So he might.
No, he took a shit.
He could have been in there a long time, just like, you cannot sleep with her.
Maybe he decided to jack off before he went back out there, so he had absolutely
That's
no
why he's
interest.
like, I gotta go.
He did a Ben Stiller?
Oh,
that would have been a great idea.
Yeah. I mean,
oh, by the way, update: $4.99 for a milkshake, regular at Steak and Shake. They serve it in a fucking glass. It's about the same size. I'm sure it's not as good.
Well, and you got to realize too, Matt, that they didn't just bond dancing; they bonded when they stole that trophy. Because if you listen to the radio, or if you listen when Bruce Willis later on is walking by on his way to his apartment, there's radio and TV playing out of each one of those. One of those actually reports that somebody stole the trophy from that place. So it was the two of them that steals the trophy. That little Easter egg, you got to really be listening, but it's in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think that they did win, and then it's a big trophy, and you couldn't give that out like every hour or even every night.
No, that's what I'm saying. They stole it. It's just one of those like for show, and they're like,
yeah,
oh,
they
hell
probably
no.
give them a gift certificate with their name on it and said, "Come on back for for a free $5 milkshake, and it's a picture of the trophy. This is a prop, and they took the prop home.
How awesome would it
That's
have been
what
to
I'm
see the
thinking
two of them coming around? Now they're giggling like a couple kids jumping into his convertible, driving off. Just, they're all running out and stuff. It'd have been awesome.
So, yeah, that. Then, sorry, I just got a mental image of that. Where was I?
Right.
Let me paint you a picture, sir.
So, Vincent comes out of the bathroom and he sees Mia, who made a huge mistake by doing heroin like someone would normally do coke. Now, I'm not real up on drugs and everything.
It was Pepsi. She thought it was Coke, but it was Pepsi.
Okay.
And
She
a lot of pep it did have.
failed the challenge miserably.
They set it up. They said, this is some strong shit, the Pepsi challenge, man.
She looked at the camera. She's like, this is not Coke. This is Coke, too.
So Vincent immediately grabs her semi-conscious, totally unconscious body and hightails it out of there and calls a friend. Phone a friend before we even got to, what was that game show with Regis Philbin?
I didn't pay attention. What kind of cell phone did he have? Was it a big brick or was it a car phone?
I think
I
it was
thought
like the
it
old
was-
Nokia flipper, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like
We were past the Zach Morris brick.
yeah. It was
Okay.
it was
It was
It
that
was kind of
Motorola
a-
one that flips, it's like a little bit smaller and it has the mouthpiece flips down. I think that's
yeah,
what that
not
phone
yeah,
was.
not the StarTAC, but like before the StarTAC.
The one they made the cool thing in Sliders off of, I think. If
Yeah.
you ever watched that TV series, the little time machine he makes, or
Slider.
portal jumper. Sliders.
Hey, listener, if we're wrong, write us in at manreviewspodcast@gmail.com. So yeah, so he calls and phones in a friend and he says, "Hey Regis, you got to help me out here." Oh, I'm sorry, not Regis, Lance. Calls Lance, and Lance is sitting there, as we'd said earlier, he's smoking a cigarette, eating Fruit Brute, which is probably
10-year-old Fruit Brute.
yeah.
10-year-old Fruit Brute.
Yeah, I just can't help but smile because Fruit Brute was like my favorite monster cereal as a kid, and I'm like, you don't see it
I
nowadays.
thought they already got rid of it by the time you were born.
No, there were still some boxes around. I remember eating some.
1982, it was discontinued after an 8-year run. Let's see, when was Fruit Brute brought back? Because they would bring it back. They brought it back several times.
I think like
2013,
the 2000s, I think, yeah.
2014, it was just discontinued again. I could have swore they brought it back again in the 90s, so shortly after Pulp Fiction, but apparently I am fucking wrong.
Matt, did you find your box underneath the sink all the way to the back behind the pipes? Was that where you found your Fruit Brute? Were you eating 10-year-old cereal, sir?
I might have been. It was at my grandmother's house, and she had a big pantry.
He could have
So-
been like 4 eating like the last box of Fruit Brute that expired 6 months earlier.
Right.
I mean, I was young. I remember eating it as a kid, and then we had Boo Berry. After,
You sure you weren't eating Yummy Mummy?
I'm sure I wasn't eating Yummy Mummy.
Because that came out in 88.
So, yeah, milk and cereal. That's what this podcast is all about. So then we
Jerry
get.
Seinfeld's favorite podcast.
You get to the bottom of the bowl, there's that big like sugar soup down at the bottom that you can't wait to just suck down when you're done.
So then,
I liked it,
Yeah, it was delicious.
but I'm a sicko.
so Lance finishes, moves his cereal out of the way so he can answer his phone. Takes his sweet time answering the phone, and then we get this really neat conversation between the two. And I like his sign off of, "Are you on a cell phone? Wrong number. I don't know this person. Hey," and then he hangs up. And then next thing you
I
know,
think he says cellular telephone.
yes.
Prank caller.
Which is funny because years later now it's all different. Like, are you on a landline? Oh, I don't know who you are. Call me on a cell phone, you dumbass.
It's like, oh shit, you're on a landline, aren't you? That would be the opposite.
Yeah, that's when you couldn't afford to throw your phone in the garbage as a burner. It's like, oh, you know how much this cost me? It's a $500 phone. No.
And so then the car literally crashes into the house, and Lance runs
Yeah.
out there.
He does some structural damage.
Yes.
I don't think it was a load-bearing brick pillar, but nonetheless, the neighbors are going to notice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yet none of them do. He does this at like 3 a.m. Not one neighbor comes out and is like, what the hell, dude? I'm trying to sleep. I got to work in the morning.
I think she said it was the woman with the shit in her face said it was 1:30 a.m. But it could have been a weekend. Maybe everybody's up. Maybe it's a very happening neighborhood.
It's still 1:30, man. Somebody smashes in my neighbor's house. I'm going to notice that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're old now. It's like you fuck around after 11 o'clock and
nothing good happens after midnight. So that's usually when
I do have one exception to that, though. If you'll again indulge me. So, my father was a police officer, as nobody knows until this moment, and he used to park his squad car out in front of our house. And him and I are home one evening, and we're watching an action film. And we thought for a second that we heard a noise, and I was like, "No, I think that was just a car chase we were watching on TV. We were watching some action film. They're having some car chase. They're smashing stuff up and everything." He's like, "Well," he goes, "Okay, well, keep the movie paused. I gotta go to the bathroom." I'm like, "All right, I'll get myself something to drink." And I walk into the kitchen and I, rinse out my glass because I'm gonna get something different. I look out the window and there is a car out in front of our house on its hood, literally spinning around in a 360 degree. like it was really weird. It was surreal. Literally, we're watching the car crash scene on TV. Some guy had been driving home drunk and managed to hit the neighbor's car, careen off my dad's squad car, flip his car over, and then it was just spinning in the middle of the road. So I'm like,
all timed with the film you were watching.
With the film we were watching. So I guess there is a possibility that you might not notice somebody smashing into your neighbor's house. That's my one time I could say that happened to me in real life. So it was a weird situation.
Wow, these new speakers are fucking great.
Yeah. Fucking THX and George Lucas, that shit works.
Felt the house rumble.
Need more bass. So then, Travolta or Vincent tells Lance all about the situation. Says that this is Mia Wallace. This is Marcellus Wallace's wife. You got to help me. And then we get this wonderful.
I loved how he dropped her right there on the lawn.
Yeah.
He's like, look. He goes, I'm gonna have to tell him that you did nothing while you just stood by and did nothing while she died here. He just drops her body, and then he goes, "All right, now help me pick her up." That was. I loved that. Like he couldn't do two things at the same time. He's like, I gotta plead my case, and I can't hold her and drag her.
Well, because he's Italian, he has to talk with his hands.
You help me, or I'm gonna tell.
Yeah.
We're both gonna get in trouble.
So then they bring her inside, and we get the most iconic needle sequence in Pulp Fiction, and I gotta say, I thought it was like really neat, just the whole fact of, all right, so you're just gonna stab it into her, like just a quick thrust, like what, 3 times?
Stabbing motion.
That was great. No. 3 times.
No, I gotta stab her 3 times.
And then I guess
it's true. Some people take directions literally, especially when it's something they've never done before, and you have to be very aware of how you're instructing them.
So.
Wouldn't you have liked to seen him stab her 3 times? No, maybe.
I think once was enough for me. And of course, to get it right, evidently they shot that whole scene of him stabbing her in reverse.
That makes sense.
So, and then like
you're gonna have an accident. I don't care how dull that fucking prop is. You're going toward her and you're gonna stop. No, we're gonna pull it away. Yeah.
And that needle's legit. Like that long ass needle like that, that's legit.
Well, it's an adrenaline shot. It's got to get through the sternum, through the muscle, and right into the heart. And I'm like, ooh.
Puncture her breastplate. That's the word.
And then,
yikes.
I thought it was funny that he was asking for a black magic marker, and instead she brings him a red one, and so she's like,
a fucking felt pen.
Yeah.
By the way, that's what he brings her. What I was just talking about. A red wax crayon or pencil, if you want to call it, a wax pencil that you would use to mark a reel-to-reel before you cut it. So we're back to my bullshit story.
So she gives him the shot, or he gives him the shot, and then she immediately wakes up, and I thought it was funny that Lance goes, "Okay, are you all right? Say something." Something.
What other Vin Rames movie do they say the words "say something"?
Is it Mission Impossible?
No, Ving Rhames says it because he wants to make sure that the nurse he just rescued from a car accident isn't a zombie in the Dawn of the Dead remake. Say something, and she goes, "Please help me," or something of that nature. But she doesn't say something. That would be pretty great. That's exactly what I thought, because she looks a little Uma Thurman-esque.
And then, of course, to cap the night off, they go back home, and Vincent's like, "So where do we stand on this? I would appreciate it if, you know, my boss didn't hear about this." And she, of course, then she says, "You know, if he heard about it, I'd be just in as much trouble." So they're kind of cool. And then, of course, we get to hear the Fem Force 5 joke. And I forgot to mention this earlier when they were having their conversation. She talks about the Fem Force 5. Is it just me, or does that sound like a really cool TV show?
Sounds like
Well, you know what it turned into, right?
That's
what it turned into.
That's what I thought as well.
Yep. That's where it originated, the idea of these female assassins.
But yeah, I would watch that show. I would enjoy that, even with the silly vaudevillian jokes at the end of each episode.
It was a Charlie's Angels ripoff.
Yeah.
So there's a right way to do it, and then there's a wrong way to do it, and then there's Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Well, next up we have is the Gold Watch and Butch. And I gotta say,
our first butt.
Yeah, I say seeing Christopher Walken come in and do this whole monologue of where he had to keep this watch
up his ass
for 2 years. I had this hunk of metal.
Your dad got
his
dysentery.
father had it up his ass for 5 years before he died of dysentery.
Yeah.
A total of 7 years. He literally spells it out. 5 years with your dad, he dies of dysentery. 2 years up my ass.
And
I've never seen a child so happy to get an object that's been up people's asses for 7 years.
Yeah, he snatches it so quick, and I'm like, my first thought is, did you make sure to wash everything? Did you take it apart, clean it out real good?
Yeah, that's going to need a deep cleaning before it gets handed
I want the deleted scene where he takes it to a jeweler and he's like, "I'm going to need this cleaned. I've cleaned it myself, but I wanted to bring it to a professional. Sir, this watch smells like someone's asshole.
I'm going to need you to put this
Funny you mentioned that.
in the sonic cleaner for me." I think, Joey, you could do that much better than I can. Yours is spot on usually.
Not a big walking guy, I guess. What I'm trying to say is, can you clean the watch or what?
What kind of chemicals can you use to clear off this stench from being up his ass?
Oh, the cadence at the end was great.
And money is no object in cleaning this watch. If you could just do what you can. That was more like Shatner.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think the Walken Award goes to Andy for this bit.
Yeah. Yes, I think Andy got it.
I would love to see Shatner do that same scene with the watch.
Do you think there was a little horror in his eye when they brought him in the room?
I kept this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass.
Do you think there was a little horror in Walken's eye though when they brought him in? They're like, "We would like you to explain the ass watch to this young child." It's like, doesn't this get me arrested or something? This seems so wrong.
He did True Romance. He knew it was going to be off the wall.
But still,
he's an actor. Did you see him do the Captain Hook stuff live?
No.
Oh my God. So like somebody fucked up or did it on purpose, just to like get people talking about it. I don't know. But they cut back during the break and he's doing like these verbal exercises while he's waiting for them to come back live, and he's dressed up like Captain Hook. I don't have it, but I'll never forget that. And it's like that was a moment behind the scenes where you're like, he's an actor. He's psyching himself up, like, you know, he goes in there and, you know, you didn't get to see the fuck ups. You got to see the perfect take.
Right.
I've got to be prepared for anything at all times.
Quentin, should I smell the watch? No.
So then,
Once I hand it to the child, can you give me a wipe, please? Just a quick handy, if you will.
I can't imagine that man's hemorrhoids, and I'm sitting on a cushion right now.
So after the whole watch sequence, we hear a ring bell or a bell ring, like in a boxing ring, and then all of a sudden we cut to Bruce Willis waking up from what I assume was a brief power nap.
Yeah, he had a dream, which was a flashback.
Yes, which is
and it worked.
Yes,
it wasn't like the Wild Bunch.
Yeah, unlike the Wire Bunch, it's a good flashback sequence. And then we cut to outside of the arena. You see a taxi cab sitting in an alley, and you hear on the radio about the boxing match. And then you see a bag come flying out the window, and then there's Bruce Willis coming down the ladder. Or actually not down the ladder. He comes out and lands in the trash can. One of those big trash receptacles that you see, like the boop, 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 boop. Yeah.
Dumpster?
Dumpster, that's it. Look, English is not my first language. Grunting is.
It was a rectangular trash receptacle.
Big trash. Put garbage here.
Was that scene from Anchorman? He goes, "Where did you get that?" He goes, "It's a food wrap. It's a wrap I got from the food basket at the end of the line." You mean the trash can? You're eating a coffee filter.
It's in the portable house on wheels.
And then he gets from the dumpster into that yellow automobile, and they drive off. And the cab driver, who is this woman named Esmeralda, and again we get that rear projection 1950s North by Northwest kind of driving, and we get this interesting conversation between Esmeralda and Butch about what is it like to kill a man. And of course Butch's reaction was, "I didn't know the guy was dead until just now." And then
now that you tell me, I don't feel a bit bad. Which brings us to our second deleted scene, where he it's extended, I should say, and he talks about, he goes, how that guy was a has-been, and that's what he gets for fucking up my sport. I like that better.
Yeah, because in this cut, he kind of like feels bad about, you know, him dying. He's like, yeah, he's, you know, he was an okay kind of guy. And then, of course, the cabbie drops him off in front of the hotel that he's staying at, and he pays off the cabbie and tips her a little extra and says, you know, if anyone asks you who you had tonight, and she's like, what was it, 2 Japanese businessmen or something like that?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
And then we get to meet another female character in the story, and out of all the characters in this movie, she's the one I find the most irritating, and that's Fabienne. I'm Fabienne.
She really nailed her role. I do believe she was meant to be irritating.
I don't see Bruce putting up with that. Like, she's just so childlike. I mean, how long are you going to deal with that before you're like, I'm out of here? Like, I'm not spending the rest of my life with this, you know?
Yeah, and she wants a baby. She's like, how would my belly look like with a pot belly?
Well, he punch her. He punch her.
Speed bag in her belly.
Well, I think I know why he sticks around with her, because she can kiss it really good.
Yeah, there was some implication.
Yeah.
There about kissing things.
Will you kiss it? Yeah.
It's so nice they skirted around that delicately so we could get to the, you know, the butt stuff later.
the good man on man action later on.
Yeah.
we get this short-lived love scene, and then we get a scene of them in the shower, or at least Bruce Willis in the shower, and Fabian's brushing her teeth, and then they go to bed, and then the next thing we see is a close-up on the TV on what I would think would be some 1970s action TV show or war movie, and Bruce Willis wakes up again, and we have another, 5-minute interlude of them just talking, and then Bruce Willis is getting dressed, and he can't find his watch. And I gotta say, that was seeing him get angry, explode, and then like he just
throws the TV immediately.
Just from that point, and then all of a sudden he just brings it all in, controls himself.
It wasn't your fault. I didn't stress the importance of the watch enough.
Yeah, I mean, he suddenly like flips and becomes like this kind of cool, somewhat level-headed guy. Acknowledges that okay, he needs to go back and get his watch.
Yeah, he was. He realized he frightened her too much.
Yeah, you think throwing a TV across the room?
Talking to himself in the car, the outer monologue. He goes, "My father's gold watch on the kangaroo. Nothing matters. Just don't forget my father's watch." Yeah. He did spell it out.
And then
I wonder if he threw that TV across the room if that was improvised to really freak her out.
Oh God, no!
You don't think so?
That's a hazard.
Well,
those tube TVs exploded.
Well, that's true. Because I know
he threw a prop.
Samuel L. Jackson throwing that table across the room was improvised. So I was wondering if the same thing kind of happened here.
That was a card table.
Well, I'm just saying, and
that was like the table like your parents set up for the kiddie table, when there's like some kind of an event. It's like, all right, you kids sit over there at this, we're going to put the legs out.
I mean, I know Hollywood and our actors show such good judgment all the time. I can see where you might be confused with them just, in the heat of the moment, whipping a TV across the room for effect.
There's no fucking way he threw a TV like unannounced.
So then he kind of controls himself, and then he gets back in the car, and then all of a sudden he's back at it again. He's just really pissed off, and so he has to go back to his apartment to get his watch. And I just thought it was neat that his entire drive there, it's like he's kind of calming down a little more, being a little more cautious. And then we get to see his apartment building. And looking at it at first, I thought it was the same apartment building as the Karate Kid because it had a similar layout. But after doing some minor research, I found out that this was shot in North Hollywood, whereas the Karate Kid was shot in like Southern California. So 2 completely different apartment buildings. But then
Los Angeles is big.
Yeah. And then of course he sneaks into his apartment, and it looks like the coast is clear. Gets his dad's watch off of the kangaroo on the nightstand.
And he sees something before we see it, the audience.
Yes. And then that's of course when we find out about the other important shit in the movie. Is John Travolta's, I think, third crap, time-wise.
What were his other 2 poops? I mean, he was in the bathroom giving himself the pep talk.
Yeah, well, I'm going to assume he took a poop then, because he was in there for a while.
All right, that's a poop. Where's it? You said this is the third
poop. This
is
the second poop.
Well,
you're in my wheelhouse right now, Matt.
The second poop. The third one, I guess, would be at the end of the movie when they're in the diner.
Correct. That is the third poop. But you're right. It's out of sequence, so technically this is the third and his final poop.
And I'm wondering if
now I understand.
Since Mia OD'd, maybe he's like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Because I think when you come off heroin, you start to get constipated. So maybe that's why he's pooping all the time.
Could be.
I think that's a legit symptom. Yeah. So he can't be high all the time. So he's constipated from heroin. I could talk about poop all night.
So
and hemorrhoid.
So we see the final showdown between Bruce Willis and Vincent when all of a sudden the Pop-Tart pops and Bruce Willis fires the machine gun and thus kills Vincent Vega.
Yeah, I want to blame it on the toaster pastry.
Rather gruesome, blood everywhere. But if you're gonna go like Elvis, that's one way to do it.
I think they missed a gold moment there, though, because there's that moment when Vincent snubs him in the bar. and makes that comment to him.
Yeah, it was a setup for
He's
later.
like, I'm not your boy. I don't remember what he says to him, but it would have been great if he'd have looked at Bruce.
He called him a palooka and punchy.
Yeah.
But did he physically?
It was all over. Butch started it. He goes, "What are you looking at?"
Right. Well, it would have been great if Bruce would have looked back at him and been like, "You should have been a little nicer to me in the bar, huh?" And then kill him. I thought they missed that one moment where he could have just been like, "Hey, you've been nice to me in the bar, huh?"
Well, if this was the last,
would have been a John McClane moment.
Yeah.
I would say if this was the last Boy Scout moment, it would have been, "I just punched your card."
Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate.
So then,
thanks for the advice.
So then Bruce Willis, aka Butch, thinks that he gets away, so he sneaks back to his car, and he's like, "Yeah, that's how you're gonna get him, Butch. They're gonna keep underestimating you." And then he pulls up the stop sign, and who do we see? But Mars.
Counting flowers on the wall, they don't bother me at all.
But
Marcellus Wallace getting donuts, crossing the street and stopping dead in his tracks. Something cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo, and then it just explodes.
Yeah.
Like we're back to violence. Yeah. It's like he guns it. Like Marcellus Wallace didn't get a chance to drop the fucking donuts. He goes, "Motherfucker!"
Yeah.
Doesn't get a chance to pull his gun. Boom! And what happens when you gun it at a red light? You get hit. Yep. You get T-boned.
Gets T-boned, and then Marcellus Wallace comes to, and we get to see a cameo of Kathy Griffith,
who was fucking Quentin Tarantino. That's how she got in the movie and in 4 Rooms.
Nice. And then
if you think about it, like if you take away his fame and his money, yeah, they would be the type to date each other. Yeah, she's gross. Anyway, and she's on the D list for me. She's ugly inside and out.
And then Marcellus starts taking pot shots at Bruce or at Butch, and clips the girl next to him. And then they have a quick foot chase into everyone's favorite pawn shop, and that's when we get this rather unique sequence of events that take place.
Yes, I noticed that the pawn shop owner had one brown eye and one blue eye, and I never noticed that until I watched it in 4K.
Huh.
I don't know. I have to look it up if the actors really like that or if they were trying to make it look like one of his eyes is false or something like that. It's just something, a little sparkle they wanted to do in the movie. But yeah, he had one brown eye, pun intended, and one blue eye. Spider's caught himself a couple of flies, and we're introduced to Zed. Now, when they wake up, I got to ask, what was he spraying in their face?
Fire extinguisher.
So it was an old-fashioned fire extinguisher.
One of the ones with the water canister, and they were just spraying them down with that.
Okay.
Because he kind of takes and sets it to the side, and then we get that whole sequence. Yeah, definitely not for kids. Definitely not for
bubblegum in a dish.
Yeah.
How many pieces do you wish? And he didn't say catch a tiger by its toe. He said the N-word. So I think he was always planning on stopping on Marcellus Wallace.
And then, of course, we have the rape scene, and then
butt love.
I was just gonna say, what's the purpose of the gimp in this scene? Because they pull him out of the box and they leash him up to whatever, and then he just kind of stands there. And is he just there to stand guard of Bruce Willis? Is the gimp gonna get a turn? Like if everything goes the way it's supposed to, is the gimp next in line? Like what do you think the purpose of the gimp is in this whole sequence?
Well, I think he's there voluntarily and he likes to be treated like shit and he's part of their little gang. I don't know if he can speak or he just never got a chance to speak. By the way, Ving Rhames was in a movie with a guy in a similar suit. He was also in People Under the Stairs, where he has the gimp suit. It might be the same one. And my thought was when Bruce Willis breaks free, and you have that artificial slow motion there. They also did the artificial slow motion when they were closing the door to Marcellus Wallace's butt doom. When he knocks him out, now seeing it again, like the GIMP is on such a device. I don't think he choked to death per se.
No, I think he
He was
was.
definitely hanging by his neck. So he may have been the sole survivor of this situation.
Mhm.
That ends until he wakes up and Marcellus Wallace decides to kill him.
I'm just
Yeah,
sitting thinking that there's a bunch of writers in the room going, you know, we're going to have this anal rape scene, and it's so status quo these days. How can we just kick this up another notch? And they're like, I don't know, a guy in a leather suit out of a box. Brilliant.
These guys are into fucked up.
Do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Cut
Perfect.
and print.
Yeah.
But the GIMP's sleeping. It's like he has empathy. He's like, you know, I don't want to wake him up. The other guy's he's the alpha. He's the dominant. He goes, well, I guess you better wake him up then. And then the finger tapping on the leather head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
That
drumming.
was pretty messed up.
Just,
Yeah. You have a hollow
anything
skull,
that
buddy.
make your skin crawl. Now, while Bruce Willis does have this change of heart, he decides to, you know, he can't leave a man to die in such a torturous
No.
way. God knows how long.
Oh, no,
they
I don't
let
think
him
that's
live.
it, Joey.
They might turn him into a GIMP. He takes his time picking his weapons.
I didn't
like
enjoy
when
that.
I like when he grabbed the chainsaw. I thought very, very Bruce Campbell like, and then he sees the baseball bat, or was it the baseball bat then the chainsaw? But then we find
Hammer, baseball bat, chainsaw, and then from the perspective of the sword, he looks up and sees it. Just like the gun on the kitchen table, he sees the weapon first, and then the audience is shown this glorious blade.
you know, and I was curious if that was a Hanzo sword like in Kill Bill.
I'm sure that there's some kind of symbol that's carried over. But when he does use the sword, Tarantino borrowed that cheap effect from Enter the Dragon where the guy, he's already got a red line on him and he just turns around
Right.
as if the sword created it. And even in the old Roger Ebert at the movies review, Roger Ebert defends the film. He goes, there's not as much violence as you think. There's very little that they show. They don't actually show him get cut. They don't show him get stabbed. He gets stabbed under the frame of the camera, right? It's left up to your imagination. Originally, how the buttfuckery was too, but then we all get to see the thrusts. I think we saw at least a good three thrusts. And that's the guy from The Mask. It's like, do we know him as anything from other than the bad guy in The Mask and the rapist in Pulp Fiction?
Wasn't he in Kill Bill too? Wasn't he like the guy with the truck?
No.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen Kill Bill, so.
Well, I disagree with Joey on this, though. I think it was you, Matt. I don't think he had a change of heart. I think he was fully just going to leave him down there to his fate. And then I think he had that one where he's like, you know, I ran this guy over with a car and he got back up. If he survives this, and he's going to do even more horrific things than he was going to do to me to begin with. So maybe I should go back down and try to save him because that might make us even. I think that was the thought process. It wasn't, I can't let this guy fall this fate. It was more like, if he survives this, my fate's going to be even worse than it was going to be before.
Yeah, I think I'd lean more towards your thought, Tim. Not necessarily a change of heart, but more of a, you know, if I save him, maybe we'll be square. And it turns out.
So you're saying it was CYA?
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Cover
very
your
much a CYA, cover your ass twice. Thanks for taking one for the team, and let me let you out of this predicament now. Are we good?
He saves Marcellus's rear after it's been.
But
beaten.
did he? I don't think he really did.
He's a little late.
Yeah.
Zed didn't get to finish.
Yeah.
I'll set him up. You knock him out. There you go.
And you notice when that next scene starts, that dude never moves again. He's just always just moving his head because I think walking's a little hard for him at that moment.
And then we find out that they're square, and basically Marcellus tells him, you know, get out of town now, and never come back. Your LA privileges have been revoked. And then we get one last scene of Bruce Willis looking back on Ving Rhames, and you don't see him move. He just holds his hand up and like waves goodbye. And I thought,
yeah, he never looked at Butch again.
Yeah.
Butch was holding a sword on him, like he's like waiting for the answer.
Yeah. And then of course we get the chopper scene where he hops on the motorcycle, and we go back to Fabian. Sorry, I really don't like her character.
I don't either. But
No.
but it does have the
Zed's dead.
best
baby.
line.
Zed's
yeah,
dead.
the Zed's dead is my favorite line from
And then
this
they played
film.
the Twilight Zone. Do 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 do.
And then we come back again non-linearly to practically the beginning of the movie with Jules and Vincent, and we see the continuation.
We're back to Ezekiel.
Yep. And Jerry Seinfeld's hiding out in the bathroom. Comes out
eating cereal.
What's that?
Yeah. He's eating cereal. And he has a. Did you see the size of that gun?
Yes, he comes out with that hand cannon.
It wasn't that big. Yeah.
And empties the whole thing at Jules and Vincent, and then they just turn their guns on him and just blow him away. And as they look back,
I loved the Phil Lamar in Gump Fiction playing his same character from Pulp Fiction again, and they did it in the same apartment, and he slumps down in the corner. He goes, "Not again!" Best parody ever.
The guys see that, oh, hey, the bullets didn't hit them. They look back at the wall, at the bullet holes that were already there. But we get the idea that those were the bullets that the other guy fired. And whether it was divine fate, luck, karma, or whatever.
It was Tenet. The bullets came from the wall and went back into his gun.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is your Christopher Nolan reference.
There you go.
Suddenly Jules has this epiphany that he needs to give up this whole life, and thinks that this was an act of God that saved them. And of course they grab Phil and Lamar, they grab the briefcase, and they get in the car and they start having this wonderful conversation about, was it God that saved them? Was it luck? And then an unfortunate mistake happens.
He didn't even hit a bump or anything.
Right.
Yeah. They had the guns previously in the trunk, and clearly Vincent is rattled as well, because why would you have your finger in the trigger, let alone point a gun at someone as if you're just putting your hand over the back seat having a conversation? Well, you got to have an opinion, and then the balloon pops.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because, let's face it, Vincent's kind of a train wreck. He's a train wreck. He makes bad decisions throughout the entire film. I mean, why would we think he's got good trigger control? I mean, it's just this guy. He goes to the bathroom at the wrong times. He just everything he does. He argues with people when he shouldn't be. He's, even with his partner, he's just making him mad all the time too. So, the guy's just he doesn't make good decisions, and this is one of the big ones.
Yeah. And then of course, they realize that they need to get the car off of the street because they just blew a head up in the back seat of the car. And first thing that they think about going to is Jules' friend Jimmy.
It's the only guy he knows in the valley.
And so he shows up.
The 803, I think, is how he says. Like, I know in the 808 or 803 or whatever it was. Yeah.
And then they show up at Jimmy's house. And we learn that Jimmy is Quentin Tarantino.
Dead N-word storage.
And so
Tarantino likes.
Yes,
that word.
He does. Storage is a big word
really
in this movie.
He really likes, not as much as he likes feet. Let's be honest. We got our first close up of dirty feet in this movie. Yeah, but a close second, the N-word.
And seems to be the only person that can get away doing it. It's just so weird. Like nobody ever calls him to the floor on it.
He hasn't said it since the 90s. He has other people say it now. Yeah. I mean, you did get to watch two slaves murder each other. He got away with that.
Well,
didn't they gouge eyes?
I was say, I'm pretty sure that. Well, it's Sam Jackson saying it in The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
So.
But
yeah, so.
What's her name? I can't think of her name. Jennifer Jason Leigh. I think she says it as well in Hateful Eight.
Oh, okay.
I think almost everybody.
Maybe Tarantino's character felt empowered to say it because if they show the nurse in a hypothetical of them moving the body, and she's black.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, but my wife's black.
And one of my best friends.
Yeah. I think you should not say it even more because of that.
So then we get introduced to Mr. Wolf. Great.
Harvey Keitel with his name spelled wrong in the credits.
Great great character. I think this is probably my favorite character in the entire movie because he comes in and he's like the fixer. And I just thought it was funny that it's like 7:00 in the morning. He's dressed in a tuxedo. I'm not sure whose house he's at, but there's like some kind of like dinner party or something going on. I'm like, just that whole sequence when he's sitting on the bedroom at somebody's house on this phone call, and I'm just like, this guy. What's this guy's story? I want to see a whole movie centered around him and him having to come in to fix problems for Marcellus Wallace. What did you guys think of Mr. Wolf?
Let's hear from Andy first.
I think the Wolf is great. I think this was before the Toy Story 2, where Woody is in disrepair, and so they hire the guy to come fix it. And I think this kind of really sets that stage of like, oh, well, we're going to have the guy whose sole purpose is to just make everything right when the people who committed the crime or did the job kind of screwed everything up. But I love the Wolf in this movie. I think it's such a good scene, and I think the dialogue back and forth between the Wolf and the two guys is just probably some of the best dialogue in this whole movie. Because you get John Travolta who mutters under his breath, like, a please would be nice, like. And then you get the Wolf saying, oh, if I come off rude, it's not what I mean to. It's just that we've got time, so pretty please wash the fucking car.
Yeah, with sugar on top.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
He had just come off at playing Victor the Cleaner in Point of No Return, which is the American remake of La Femme Nikita. So this is kind of like the nice guy version. Hey, let's everybody be cool and teamwork and don't panic or whatever version of like the flip side of a coin, like a different kind of cleaner.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of how he got a cast.
Andy, I got to give you a star for connecting Pulp Fiction to a Disney film. That's nice.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Yes.
Gotta find that link.
And of course, the guys are in the car cleaning it up. And I thought it was hilarious that Jules is in the back seat cleaning up the majority of it, and Vincent's in the front seat. And they had that.
His own brain.
And
and he's getting yelled
they
at.
had that whole argument, and he's like, "You get back here! You cleaned up this."
Well, and again,
fuck it, we're switching.
Two scenes again where Vincent.
It was like two siblings arguing over doing chores.
Well, and it's two scenes exactly again where, like I said, Vincent, he's kind of an idiot. Like he's arguing with the Wolf, who's been called in to fix his mess, and as you say, he's like, "Well, please be nice." Like, dude, you just blew the head off of a guy. I'm here to clean this shit up, and you want me to say pretty please? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Get it back here and do this. And then Samuel Jackson's like, and he's having the same argument over. He's like, you're arguing with this guy, now you're arguing with me, and I'm doing the crap job, or the crap work back here. What the hell's wrong with you? He's just like, yeah. So, again, not good decisions. Doesn't know when to shut up.
Yeah, Vic Vega is definitely the calmer of the two brothers, but definitely the more evil.
Yeah.
Vic Vega being Michael Madsen in character in Reservoir Dogs, and we're never going to get the Vega brothers movie. It's not going to happen unless they make it happen when they're teenagers, maybe, and then they just cast two different people. Who knows? But Tarantino seems like he's going to do one or two more movies, and he's done. He's very focusing on being a father.
Gotcha.
So
wants to bring his kid up so he can show him Pulp Fiction.
That's right.
He
Family
buys
movie
him
night.
old, expensive Planet of the Apes original toys, and then watches his son open them.
Come here, son. Let me show you what made Dad all his money. Sit down. This is gonna be a ride.
Don't you like Dr. Zaius? No, Dr. Zaius is stupid. I don't know what that is. Anyways, yeah, he's kind of like in Dadland now.
Gotcha.
So they clean it up, and they got the best washing scene with a hose since
Yeah.
or First Blood. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course after they get cleaned up, that's when they get the volleyball uniforms, the volleyball attire. And,
yeah, I love it. It's like, well, you think it's funny, huh? Look like a couple of dorks. You're fucking close.
Close.
And then they take the car, and I think it's funny that the wolf drives the car, and then Vincent drives the Acura, or no, it's an Audi, right?
No, it's Acura, I believe.
Okay. And then they wind up at the Acme Auto Parts junkyard, and
Joe's Truck and
yes,
Tow.
yeah, and they the wolf asks them, "I could give you guys a ride somewhere," and then you hear them kind of like arguing or whatever about where they're at, and he's like, "Oh wait, I see something in your future. I see a cab ride," and then the guys end up taking the cab ride to our opening sequence in the diner.
Move out of the sticks, fellas.
Yeah.
And then he takes the lady who plays Pat from Saturday Night Live on apparently a lunch date, or he takes her out to breakfast. I'm not sure.
And I like when he looks at her, he's like, "See that? That's respect. That's what's nice."
And then we're back at the diner, and we get probably some of the neatest events in a bank or in a heist or robbery of a diner. You know, we see everything happening, and all of a sudden we see that Jules. Oh wait, no, I'm getting confused here. Hold on.
What you mean walk the earth?
Yes, so
like Kane and
Jules and Vincent are having a conversation, and
motherfucking
every once in a while you can kind of hear other people in the background, and you can hear the garçon from earlier in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course this is where we get the second poop of the day for John Travolta.
Mm-hmm. Last poop of the movie, second poop in linear time.
And then that's when the robbery takes place. Thoughts, opinions? What do you guys think of this whole diner sequence as it wraps back around to the beginning of the movie?
The best part's the wallet reveal.
Mm-hmm.
The one that says bad motherfucker on it. And in fact, you can buy a bad motherfucker wallet, both official and unofficial, all over the internet now.
Yep.
Which kind of becomes Samuel Jackson's like kind of persona. He adds that into his lore as an actor, and he even puts that on his lightsaber.
This is his first big motherfucker movie?
Yeah, and then he puts that on his lightsaber. Even he doesn't put big, bad motherfucker on the lightsaber, but he puts like BU or BMF on it. So because that becomes ingrained in who he is, the lore of Samuel L. Jackson.
These Monday Friday snakes on this these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday Friday plane.
Monday Friday train.
Yeah.
Plane.
There was a Snakes on a Train movie.
There was, that was the asylum version of the Snakes on a Plane.
The Mockbusters.
This whole sequence, I think is really might be my favorite part of the movie. Just kind of coming out into the diner, coming back to the diner, going through the whole bit again of the robbery, and then the kind of philosophical reasoning of Jules as he kind of explains, I've been through some shit today. Let me tell you about it. And typically, you step to me, I would kill you. But today is not that day. Today is a good day for you. So you selected the right day to rob the diner where I just so happened to be eating breakfast. And let me tell you why. But I think this is the scene for me that really solidifies just how good Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've seen him, at peak anger. We've seen him here at super violent, but now it's just kind of like coasting to express all of this crap that he's just gone through. And I think this is just fantastic from him. It's a really well-written scene, really well composed. And I think there's still that even though it gets serious, I think there's still really good humor in it as well. And I think this is a great sequence in the movie.
I also especially like how not only are we getting a scene where we see Jules is making a life-changing choice, but it also kind of explains why he's no longer in the film when Vincent goes to see Bruce Willis, and why it's him and Marcellus Wallace that has that whole interaction.
Yeah, Bruce would have probably gotten shot walking through the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. He quit, and this Bible verse that he kept paraphrasing or whatever, like he found different meaning in it. So he's trying to be the shepherd.
Yep.
So you did get to see a character arc in the movie where someone decided that they were going to give up this life, and he was really. I mean, this is the guy who ate somebody's lunch and then or breakfast and then fucking murdered him.
Yeah.
So he's changed. He's still tough as nails, but he's not taking any shit. But he's gonna try to walk a different path.
And the thing I like the most about this scene too is that you've got Pumpkin and Honey Bunny who think they're the two biggest badasses in the diner, and they're holding this place up, and they are in total control. And they find out they are far from the most dangerous thing in the diner. And that's a scary position to be when you're in their shoes. Like, you know, you go from being the wolf to the sheep very quickly in, you know, in just a matter of seconds. And I think nothing articulates that more than when she starts to have the breakdown. He's like, how you doing over there? And she's like, I gotta pee and I just want to go home. Like, it really emphasizes the I'm not as bad as I thought I was 20 seconds ago. So I thought that was a really interesting, you know, sideline, you know, for this whole scene outside of the excellent performance by Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
What's Fonzie like? He's cool. Yeah. We're gonna 5 little Fonzies.
And I like how he starts when he's like, you might be surprised, but this isn't the first time I have had a gun in my face. And and he just says it so matter-of-factly, and it kind of pans back to Pumpkin, and he's like, shit, I am so screwed. You know, he knows at that moment, like, this guy is just, you know, that things are going to go bad for him.
And I think
bit off a little bit more than he could chew.
I think another neat thing about this is also the professionalism that both Jules and Vincent have, because you don't see Vincent again until after Jules says, "Ain't that right, Vincent?" And then you pan over and you see he's got Honey Bun covered after he came out of the bathroom, and I was like, "Oh yeah," because you don't see him until after Jules says something.
He came in quietly. And then he almost breaks it up. He's like, I'm going to shoot this motherfucker on principle alone if you give him your money. But I think he kept his wallet and gave him the money in it. And it was, you know, it's like, this is a pretty nice take.
Yeah.
Right? And then they tuck their guns in the waistbands of their fucking dork shorts.
And they walk out and it's into the movie.
Can you imagine being one of the patrons there and just having gotten robbed, and then to have these guys pull their guns, send the robbers on their way, and then you're like, oh shit, I still don't know if we're safe. Like, these two guys are still in here with these hand cannons. It's just like, I mean, it's bad enough they got robbed, but nobody's going to believe that this happened on top of it. It was just crazy, you know?
Yeah.
I think of it as like, you know, you have the patrons who are closest to the entrance. They lost their wallets. Like, they were robbed too. And then you've got the patrons who are on the other side of the restaurant who just kind of like got to watch this whole show unfold and still get to keep their money as well. It's like, man, what a day. What a day for them.
I think it's still my second favorite hold up scene in a restaurant. Number one is falling down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, pointing out the juicy, delicious cheeseburger. It's 3 inches thick. And then you look at this flat, mangled. Does anybody see anything wrong with this? Anyone at all? Rhetorical question. The little kid raises his hand.
Well, guys,
breakfast ends at 10 o'clock.
I had one.
That's a good one.
I have one last question about the film, and that is, in your opinion, what do you think is the most iconic pulp fiction or pop culture scene in this movie?
The music.
What about you, Andy? What do you think is the most iconic pop culture thing in this movie?
You know, and I think we kind of talked about it earlier, but I think it's the Royale with cheese. I think that's become something that's so, like, you know, even people who haven't seen this movie know that it's Royale with cheese. Correct. And that they can kind of go back and reference that, oh, it's from this. Have you ever seen it? No, but I know it's from Pulp Fiction. That or the dance. True. I think the dance is another really big moment too, that you know, and I also feel like, you know, this is part of this is because we've we're of a certain age that have kind of been with this movie from the get-go, and 30 years later we're able to kind of look back and go, oh, well, this thing was so big at that point in time that it's like, oh, that's what stood out then. But yeah, kind of now I think the thing is Royale with cheese.
How about you, Tim?
For me, it's got to be The Briefcase. I mean, what movie came out 30 years ago that people to this day are still on Reddit arguing about? I mean, literally, when I was looking that stuff up, there were posts within the last month of people still having this. And you get other people that get on these Reddit sites and be like, I cannot believe you people are still fucking talking about this and arguing this out. It was just like
the latest theory is that it's Hunter Biden's laptop.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, if you could argue about something for 30 years, you've made something pretty iconic.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
Well, I think mine is the whole Ezekiel 25:17. I mean, like I said, I heard the whole quote on the CD before I even seen the movie, and it kind of stuck out in my mind because I mean, it's Sam Jackson doing this great speech, and it's so ingrained in pop culture now that it's actually on his tombstone in the Captain America movie when he faked his death. On his gravestone, It says Nick Fury, and then it has like all this stuff, and then Ezekiel 25:17.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, that alone, just the fact that there's so many different pop culture references in this movie, just tells you that how much this movie has become so well known, and it is such a huge movie that is definitely belongs in the 1,001 movies to watch before you die book.
It redefined what a GIMP is and made GIMP a household word.
Any last minute thoughts
Bring out the
on the film itself before we dive into our closing death clock?
No, I guess the only thing I'd say is, amazingly, as much as I can talk about this movie, I'm not a super big fan of it. This is a movie that's never really clicked for me. I know you probably wouldn't get that from the conversation we just had, but on face value, I just feel like it's a movie about nothing. I mean, it's a bunch of weird, random, disjointed events that are all kind of tied together by a common thread, which is Marcellus Wallace. I think it's got some great ideas. I love some of the scenes, but I feel like it kind of like they had a base of what they wanted the movie to be, and they kind of just tacked this other stuff on, and it worked. I mean, it worked very well, especially in the way that they edited it, but I enjoyed several of those parts, but some of them I feel a little lackluster too. So, but with that being said, I still see the significance of the film. I understand why the people who love it. And, I also understand why the people who don't love it, so, and, it's just, like I said, it's always been a weird one for me. And that's why I've only watched it literally 3 times in my life. Once in theater with my wife, once probably on my own when I thought I needed to have it again on DVD. And then for this podcast. And I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, to be honest.
Is it worth taking 2 hours and 34 minutes off of your life if you've never seen this movie before?
I think it has to be. So I'll give mine right now, even though.
But it's not for everyone, and it's not necessarily repeat viewing.
Not for me. How about for you, Matt?
Pulp Fiction is one of those movies that I'll pop in once in a blue moon. So I would definitely say it's worth taking time off your death clock to watch it. Just for the sheer fact that I think this is Quentin Tarantino's like apex movie. This is when he was when he truly got dialogue down. He truly got story. He was developing the way to tell stories. It's got a lot of his favorite kind of 70s music in there. The music itself is kind of iconic, and I think all of that kind of wraps it up into this movie that you should take some time off your death clock to watch. But yeah. Andy, just kind of give you a heads up. So we have this thing called the death clock where we just got done watching this movie. Would you recommend it for somebody else to watch, to quote unquote take time off of their clock that they have before they die? Like the book says, 1,001 movies before you die. Is it worth taking time to watch this movie?
Yeah, for me, absolutely. This is, I kind of feel like this out of all of you guys, this is probably I might be the most pro Pulp Fiction. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. one of those movies that I can always go back to, and one that always feels like an event to me. Like it always feels like whenever I sit down and watch Pulp Fiction, it feels like I'm watching something special. And so I think for that reason, this is something that's certainly worth the 2.5 hour runtime, because it feels a little unlike, a lot of, I mean, it certainly borrows from other movies, but I don't feel like there's anything like Pulp Fiction, in the things that it covers, the genres that it apes. I think it's a pretty unique piece of cinema, and I love it. So yeah, I think it's worth your time.
How about you, Joey?
I also agree that it's worth taking time off your death clock. It's not repeat viewing for everybody. There's movies with much more disturbing rape scenes in them, like the 2009 Last House on the Left remake. That is way more disturbing, and with a beloved actor being the bad guy and a very innocent character being the victim, versus Marcellus Wallace being, of course, an asshole gangster, pun intended. So there's more disturbing things. I feel worse for Ned Beatty in Deliverance, because he seemed like he was a nice guy. So it's definitely worth taking time off your death clock. And it reminds me of being younger and watching this movie again and again. It reminds me of being in my dorm room on a Saturday afternoon, watching it on VHS again. Vincent picks up Mia at the house, arrives at the house, across the catty corner across the hall from me. My friend Tony is sitting in his dorm, Indian style, crisscross applesauce on the carpet. The door closes. Then, by the time that they had gotten back with the trophy, the door is open. Tony comes into my room and tells me, "I just had sex with that girl." And I was like, wait a second. So you guys went from like just sitting and talking on the carpet to making out to having sex, and she's left? He's like, yeah. And then I look, and she's talking to the guy that's now directly across the hall from me, and the door closes.
Dude, I think you just had sex with a hooker.
More Pulp Fiction. We watched some more Pulp Fiction. Oh, she was doing this for free. And then she leaves that guy's room a little bit later. And I go up to him, I go, what did you two do in here? And he's trying to be a gentleman. And he's like, oh, nothing. We were just talking. I was like, why was the door closed? He's like, whatever, we're talking. And I go, okay. Do you know she just had sex with your neighbor next door? And he had this look on his face of horror. And that's what I'll always associate with this movie, is like, she was in there, got the deed done, had sex with two guys before half of this movie was over, probably only within a 40-minute period. And it was all clocked against Pulp Fiction.
Wow, I now feel.
I was to say that's not necessarily complimentary towards them.
Yeah.
No, that young lady, I think, had some issues, and that's what she would do. She didn't go to class very much. She would drop out eventually, and I think she just went, from boys' floor to boys' floor at the dorms, and just saw who was DTF. And
All right. Memories. Okay, Matt.
All right.
How about you? How about your death clock? You didn't really give us your opinion on that one.
No, I did. I said it's worth it. I went to this whole thing about how it's a great movie about conversation, and Quentin Tarantino's a bit developing story, probably his apex film.
Okay. Yeah, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the only other thing I say about it is I think what makes this film special and what it does is it brings indie filmmaking to the mainstream. There's 3 movies from this time period that you have to watch that brings the indie film accessible to everybody who wouldn't normally go and watch that. And that's Pulp Fiction, Clerks, and El Mariachi. Those are the 3. These guys, they bring this indie feel, and now everybody's like, maybe there's more to see than just the main, stuff that Hollywood's been kind of cramming down our throat all these years. So I think that's why they're important, to watch each one of them. Even if you're not a fan of them, you should watch each one at least once.
Gotcha. Well, with that, we we'll head over to our mail call. And folks, if you want to write into our show and tell us what you think of these movies we've reviewed, or if you have an opinion about something we said, or if you just think that Joey's completely off his rocker and someone needs to, rein him in, write us at mamreviews@gmail.com. That's mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com.
If you put Pulp Fiction in the subject line, you will get a digital code for the movie Pulp Fiction. It expires towards the end of 2024. It's still good.
But you have to be the first one. The first one to send us that email.
Yes.
The first. I don't have unlimited digital code.
I mean,
Put Pulp Fiction in the subject line. Tell me to go fuck myself, and I will reply with a screenshot of the digital code.
All right, guys. Well, Andy, this is usually where we have a segment where we call "What You Watching." So, outside of Pulp Fiction, is there anything that kind of grabs you that you're interested in telling about our audience about? So, what you watching?
Yeah, so I recently, I think it's wrapping up its theatrical run now, but I went to and saw Julio Torres' Problemista. It is the latest kind of film from A24, kind of an absurd comedy that has a heart of gold at the center of it.
Is there a hooker with a heart of gold in the movie?
No hooker with a heart of gold in this one. This is,
oh, darn it.
Sadly, it doesn't go there. Oh, wait a second.
No, there is a hooker.
This kind of. So there's
Pretty Woman.
Did she know Joey?
No. So
Did she
what
go to school
happened?
with Joey?
Yes.
I've never been with a hooker.
She was.
I have been around one, but I wasn't with her.
She visited the floor above Joey for a week at a time. No, it's a really interesting movie that I really was very surprised by the time the movie got to the end of it, just how much I enjoyed it, how kind of invested I felt in it. Again, it's not a movie for everybody. It's very weird. Like, just the whole way that the characters kind of carry themselves, the way they interact with each other. And it, even at the beginning, like, you might find yourself just super annoyed with these characters, and then they kind of grow on you over the course of the hour and 45-minute runtime. And it's just this weird story about, like, art and, kind of finding somebody that you can connect with, kind of finding your purpose. I thought it was delightful, and it just I'm so high on it because it just shocked the hell out of me by how much I enjoyed it, because I thought it was going to be decent, but by the time it was over, it's something that I would consider one of my favorites so far this year. So, Problemista, that's one I just saw the other day.
Where can people watch that again?
So it's still in theaters, but it does have a premium VOD release right now, so you can find it on like Apple Video, Prime Video. It's the high price.
When in doubt,
ones.
Go to justwatch.com and it'll tell you if it's streaming somewhere either for rent or on a legitimate subscription website.
Yep, most definitely. Just Watch is one of the greatest tools in the world.
It's the phone book.
Yeah.
If you remember what those are, but for movies, streaming.
What about you, Joey? What are you watching?
I am 3 episodes into Fallout. No spoilers. I ended on the episode where they go fishing. Actually, there's fishing. So they've gone fishing, and that's where I'm at. So it's good. I think I bought one of the video games a long time ago. I think that's when they switched to the first person perspective. And I've never played it, but the TV show's good. Tim?
Okay, so I have actually watched the movie that allowed me to buy a DVD player. When this movie came out, my wife was like, VHS is fine. And then this movie came out, she's like, we have to get a DVD player. So I have been watching the original Matrix. And I watched that because I was actually on our friend's YouTube live stream with the MCU's Bleeding Edge. So I was over there with our friends over there reviewing the Matrix this week. So if you get done with this podcast and enjoyed it, go check me out over there with our friends. Fantastic.
Well, guys, I didn't have anything cinematically fantastic to bring for what I'm watching. I was up late one night just editing our podcast, and I came across this film, and I said, okay, I have to mention this film because it is by far the worst bad movie. And that is from 1991, so 3 years before Pulp Fiction, Samurai Cop. And
It's an acquired taste. I've watched.
I got
Watch a montage. Watch a super.
Yeah,
edit
see,
of the
I
movie.
watched maybe about 5 minutes of it, and then I started skipping through the movie. So I'm like, this is so bad. Bad acting, bad everything. I was expecting to see something a little better quality, but yeah, it is it is terrible. If you want to see a good version of it, go out to Tubi TV, type in Riff Tracks Samurai Cop. Far funnier. They talk more about it than anyone should. Um, the only
I believe Red Letter Media has done things.
the
on
only
it as
really
well.
funny bit is the fact that the main character is down on the ground while his female partner is up in a helicopter, and they're having a conversation without any radios, like they're standing next to each other, and they're not reading lips, and they're not doing telepathy. It's bad.
Well, I was gonna say it's like Look Who's Talking. The babies are talking with telepathy.
Okay,
Gotta use your imagination.
so yeah, that's what I've got.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Where can our listeners hear your stuff?
So you can check out it. Basically, if you look for Fat Dude Digs Flicks on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Good Pods, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find me there. And that we have, like I said, Let's Talk About, which is the main show. It's an interview show. Then there's the Criterion Break, where I'm joined by my two friends, Blake Ginnathan and Derek Veerink, and we dive into our love of the Criterion Collection proper and the Criterion Channel. And then is the Balcony, and that's kind of everything else, kind of our journey from the art house to the multiplex and everything in between. And it's just three guys like you guys, three guys just talking about movies. So a good time.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming. We appreciate it. It's been a great time. I hope you've had a good time as well.
I really have. It's been a blast. You guys are great.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening to the Middle Age Movie Reviews podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the podcast, and we all hope you at least go watch Pulp Fiction at least one time. And if you love it, you'll hopefully watch it multiple times.
Subscribe to our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, and YouTube. Check out more of our stuff on Facebook and Instagram at MAM Reviews, as well as episode posts and news on X. We're also part of the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network.
Good night, everybody, and just remember, if a stranger, somebody you don't know, is offering you free pizza, you don't know where that pizza's been, and your neighbor could have had their dirty hands all over that pizza right before you're eating it. So just say no to free pizza from a stranger. Good night.
And no one's half the battle.
G.I. Joe.